news channel.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Sunday, the 20th of August. Today, decades in the making, the Lionesses will take on Spain in the World Cup final for the first time. Kick-off is at 11 a.m. Are they going to bring football home?
Of course they can. The government is looking to change the law and force criminals such as Lucy Letby, who was convicted of 7 murders, to attend their sentencing. Is this the right thing to do?
And the sunbed war is now taken to a new level as Spaniards apparently are putting up fake signs of falling rocks and nasty jellyfish to stop us British tourists from hogging prime beach spots.
I love that story. I absolutely love that. You know, that is kind of trickery, next level deception.
It would work on me as well, because I wouldn't go anywhere near a beach if it said jellyfish.
Same here. My kids wouldn't either. You know, these kind of sunbed war things, they do get me going. We get very competitive when I hit on foreign shores, but I think that's actually really clever.
It is, actually, yeah.
OK, so it's been calmer weather-wise yesterday, mercifully, but will it last? Well, here's Greg Dewhurst from the Met's office. Here's your weather forecast throughout the show.
We have plenty of sunny spells in the forecast, but also a scattering of showers. Find out all the details with me coming up in the programme.
Oh, well, as I said yesterday, and we'll do it again today, we'll keep you warm if you keep watching. Very good morning to you. I'm Anne Diamond.
And I'm Martin Daubney, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, yes, and you're avidly watching the weather forecast. Is it looking good for you, do you think?
It is. I'm off to Tenby after this, although my train's been cancelled.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shocker.
Yeah, they cancelled the train last night at 7 p.m.
What reason do they give for cancelling a train?
No driver. Oh. So if they can't get a driver at 7 p.m. on a Saturday, presumably they should be able to find one before 1:45 on a Sunday, but they haven't. On the bright side, if life gives you lemons, put it in a G&T.
So what are you going to do? You're literally going to do that? Sit on the platform somewhere?
No, I've put my London train later, so I'm watching the Lionesses at Paddington Station. I can't wait because I was going to watch it before.
On the big screen in Paddington Station.
That's right. Yeah. If you remember, like before, I was going to watch it on the train, so now I get to watch it in the pub in person.
Maybe that's why they couldn't find a driver, because they've booked their time off to watch the game.
I did think about that, but then it's in Wales. But then again...
yes, and it's England playing, isn't it? But,
yeah.
Yeah, OK.
Oh, the driver's bunking off to watch the Lionesses.
If you're going to watch, as I am as well, it's the first time ever I think I've said, I want to be home by a certain time so I can watch the football. I've never said that, I don't think, in my life. But do you know who to watch out for? Yeah,
I do, and we've got a man right next to us now who's going to tell us about that. But I've got big eyes on the goalkeeper, Mary Earps, because she's a Nottingham lass. She plays for Man United. But she's a Nottingham lass. And what I really
She'll be easy to spot because she wears the
pink kit. And there's been a bit of controversy about the pink kit because Nike apparently don't sell it.
No, that's
so they've been cutting her out of photographs, which I think she'd feel quite aggrieved about. This is the World Cup, tournament. But I think she's one to watch. I'm just behind it. I love the fact there are a bunch of northern lasses. When you look at the kind of geographical spread, it's very representative of Britain. And I think it's huge. I've got my England shirt on the peg out there. I thought it was slightly inappropriate to wear it on national TV.
Well, I think so, yes, because there are serious issues to talk about today as well. So we've got a packed programme for you. But, of course, one of the main talking points has to be football and whether or not it is actually going to come home.
Yeah.
England's women have made it to the World Cup final for the first time ever, looking to repeat what, of course, the men did way back in 1966.
Don't mention 66. The match kicks off at 11 a.m. this morning as we take on Spain, just 1 year after beating the Germans, of course, in the Euro finals.
So can we do it? Aidan's here.
Good morning to you.
We have to... We will do it, won't we?
I think
we've got to talk that way.
England are favourites for a reason. And they arrived as European champions, as we know. They've got no kind of inferiority complex. They've got stronger as the competitions progressed. They looked a little bit listless in some of the group games, but they weren't properly tested. But when they were really asked questions of, and I'm talking about the penalty shootout against Nigeria, having had to go through extra time without Lauren James, your star player, because she got sent off because of the kick. And then the next round, you're 1-0 down against Colombia, all the way down in Australia, and you turn it around to win 2-1. It's very difficult to come from behind in a World Cup game. And then, of course, Australia playing home nation. You concede a goal. Your goalkeeper's out of position there, concedes a goal to Sam Kerr from distance. For all the world, I mean, you know, for 25 minutes left, I feared the worst for England then, but just had the mental fortitude to rattle off 2 goals and win the game. End of story. And here we are in the final.
Superb. So, who are the big names to watch? A lot of people are coming to women's football for the first time. Of course, many have been with them all the way. But standout players to keep a beady eye on today?
Well, it depends on selection, really. I mean, there's 2 that I would really pick out above any others because they're the subject of debate going into the match, and that's Lauren James, the Chelsea forward, recently of Manchester United, 15 goals, 4 caps, 21 years old. She is a generational talent, we can all agree on that, but she did kick out quite petulantly, as we mentioned a moment ago, in the first knockout game against Nigeria. Now, we were fearing she may get a 3-match ban. She may have got a 1-match ban if they'd been particularly lenient. FIFA cut the difference and gave her a 2-match ban, which means she's available today.
She could still play.
She can play today, exactly. Now, Ella Toone, though, has been playing in her position, and she's played very well. She's got an excellent goal to open the scoring against Australia. Will Serena Wiegmann make a change to a winning team? I would have thought it's unlikely, although she will go on who she thinks will offer the best threat for England going forward.
Ella Toone's Man United.
Ella Toone is Manchester United, yeah. 17 goals in 37 caps. And plays for a big club as well, big game experience. Now, if she was to drop to the bench, she's shown a great level of proficiency last year at the Euros coming off the bench, very effective as well. So I don't think England are going to lose a great deal of quality if they lose her in preference to Lauren James. I cannot imagine that Serena Wiegmann hasn't made that decision already, but that's the big debate.
The only name I really know is Alessia Russo, because didn't she score the last goal?
She did indeed. Yeah. She's had a big move in the summer as well. She's born in Maidstone. Born in Maidstone, came through the ranks at Charlton Athletic, who were one of the original WSL teams before the WSL started. But yeah, she's been again scoring goals up front with Lauren Hemp, coming good when it was really necessary. 14 goals, 28 caps, 24 years old. She's just signed for Arsenal from Manchester United. So, yeah, again, one of the players who's been really consistent under Serena Wiegmann, and one of the players who's improved under Wiegmann as well. Wiegmann's credited with bringing a ruthless winning mentality to this England side. She's one of the players that's improved, so for sure.
Now, Spain won't be a pushover today. In fact, even Mystic McGee has said this might go to extra time.
I think it will. Yeah.
They played excellently against Sweden. They're prolific scorers.
They are.
So we shouldn't, I'm not putting a dampener on things, but it's going to be a tough encounter.
Well, you can't get to the World Cup final at any level in any sport unless you're very good at what you do. So you're not it's a 2-horse race. 14 goals in 6 games that they've scored. They were beaten 4-0 by Japan in the group stage, and that wasn't a dead rubber either. There was something riding on that. So they can be got at defensively, and I think England will be looking at that and thinking there's areas we can exploit. They're a possession side. They will hold the ball for a long time, much like the men's team. They like to have the ball. They like to be able to dictate play. That leads me to think that Lauren James might suit this game because if you defend deep and you invite your opponents onto you, give them the ball, then when you play on the counter-attack and you're looking at pace and speed and direction on the break, Lauren James might be the one to do that.
Because Spain are quite choppy, aren't they, as in they get stuck in. And what was interesting when England played Australia, England showed a bit of a dirty side, in a good way.
Yeah,
they were getting stuck in, they weren't doing Queensberry rules. I think we need a bit of that today, though.
Well, we do. You need the dark arts. That's what you need, because it's a World Cup. You saw when Argentina won the Men's World Cup back in December, I felt that was the difference between the likes of Argentina, France and England. The talent difference was probably in favour of England, actually. England had better players, but I do think that you looked at Argentina and you thought they will do anything, absolutely anything, to win a game of football. And that's the mentality that England's men need, and I think the women have actually got it today. And that's why I think that, don't forget, they go there as tournament winners. They've already won tournaments. Their coach has won Euros with Holland and with England. She's been in the World Cup final with Holland before. It's no stranger, this position. It's not a strange position for her to be in today. And I think her experience added to the quality in England's side will carry us over the line.
Now, of course, it's happening in Australia, so it's 11 o'clock kick-off our time.
Yes.
Which means it's, what, the middle of the night?
It's about 9 p.m, is it?
It'll be,
Sydney?
for TV reasons, no, it'll be about 8:30, I would have thought.
Yeah.
No, it won't be half, it'll be 8 or 9. I'll check.
Yeah.
It depends on the GM. But the clocks go back when? End of October, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're not there yet.
I can never tell you. We'll check exactly what
It's
time
about
it
9
is.
p.m, I think.
But why would they wait? Is it because of global television?
Yes, it's a global television. I mean, look, it's always awkward when it's in Australia anyway, or anywhere with a time zone of it in excess of 5 hours, because you can't please everyone with the TV audiences. I'm a veteran of the 2002 World Cup when England were kicking off at 7:30 in the morning. And so it wasn't a question of opening pubs an hour early. They were having to open all night.
I loved that Japan World Cup.
I know, it was good.
Michael Owen scored against Brazil.
That's right.
At
The only problem,
time.
Anne, was that the games were done by 12:30.
Yeah.
So you'd have your 3 matches. You have one at 7:30, one at 9:30, one at 12:30. By the afternoon, you know when you're probably looking, especially at weekends when you're looking forward to getting home, there was nothing to watch until early the next morning.
No.
And you have to get a good night's sleep as well.
Yeah.
So it's not as bad this time, but for the it's the TV audiences that will be that's who the timing is scheduled for.
So apparently we've checked. It's 11 in the morning.
Yes. Here.
For us, it's 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, that's about right,
8
yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah,
That's not too bad.
That's a
is
good
it?
No,
kick
not
off
at all.
time,
Not
yeah.
at all. And it gives anyone with the time zone in between, gives them a chance to watch
Well,
it.
I'll tell you why we can check, because we're going to join a Lionesses fan, Georgia Simpson. She is out in Sydney at the moment. Hello there, Georgia.
Hey, how are you? How you doing?
Good day. You know, we are really good, and we're like you, very, very keen to see a win later on today. How are you feeling about the whole thing?
If I'm honest, I've woken up super nervous. I think the pressure is now really on us. Being out in Australia, I live in Sydney, and the Australians have been really sticking at us on us hard recently, especially after the win the other day. So there's a lot of pressure on us to win now, but hopefully we've got it in the bag.
Now, Georgia, before we get on to today's match, can we just talk about how hostile the Aussies were when the Matildas played the Lionesses? There was a lot of stick, wasn't there? And I think a lot of people were quite surprised by that. They thought, the women's game is going to be nice and polite, but none of it at all. The old rivalry between Australia and England was rampant.
Yeah, so we were actually lucky enough to be at the game, and I think we were probably about 5% of England fans who were actually in the stadium in a sea of yellow. The Aussies were going at us the whole entire time, and it was only sort of up until that 2-1 point when they sort of quietened down and thought, you know what, actually we think that England might win this. But yeah, they've been going at us. Apparently there's a lot of them out there buying Spain shirts and things like that for today. So yeah.
Yeah, well, OK, what's your prediction, do you think, for the game?
I think likewise, as much as I hate to say it, I think it will go to extra time. I think it might be 2-1. I think Spain are going to come at us hard. I'm just praying it doesn't come to penalties, because I cannot take that.
No, I couldn't either. That's just too much, isn't it?
It might be worth, Georgia, putting a few quid on that, because Aidan McGee here, we've been calling him Mystic McGee. He's been calling everything dead right. He says exactly the same as you, 2-1 England extra time. Have a little flutter, I would, if I were you. But in terms of this idea of Australians supporting Spain, that sticks in my craw a bit, I tell you, because that's what Scottish fans used to do. They used to support Germany and all of that. But it does add to the fun, it adds to the theatre. You've got to be absolutely, you've got loads of butterflies in your stomach, Georgia.
Yeah, there's a lot in my stomach right now. It doesn't help that in a couple of hours I'll actually be in the stadium watching it live. So definitely going to be feeling that pressure as well. And yeah, I think just because the Australians are so behind Spain and want them to win, it's going to feel great when we win. And I'm going to say when we do win, but it's going to be intense.
So, Georgia, in terms of the ticket allocation, I'm assuming then that loads of tickets have gone to Aussies. They're going to be wearing the red and the gold by the sounds of it. So this sounds like it could be like a bit of an away match for England today in terms of the crowd. Would you say that's a fair assumption?
Yeah, I think obviously being in Australia, I think a lot of the Australians have, rightly so, taken a lot of tickets. But yeah, every game has felt like an away game for us. I've been really lucky to go to quite a few. And the good thing is, though, and I think it's very sort of poignant of women's football, is in the crowd, you're still seeing people wearing USA shirts, you're still seeing people wearing Denmark shirts. Everyone is still representing their country. And I think, yeah, as much as it is lots of rivalry, I think the key is here that everyone's coming together and we are putting women's football and women's sport on the map, which is huge.
I mean, here it's meant to be summer here in Britain, of course, so which means it's sort of your winter. What is the weather like at the moment? Is it looking good?
Do you know what? We've woken up to absolute blue skies. It's 25 degrees outside. It's absolutely beautiful outside. So I think, yeah, it's going to be a good day. I can feel it in my bones.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you doing out there, by the way? You say you live out
I'm
there.
a physiotherapist.
Go on. Have you lived there long?
I've only been out here 3 months. I'm a physio, so yeah, starting my career out here now. I used to work for Dulwich Hamlet as a physio.
That's my local club.
So I was very into football.
Brilliant. And whereabouts are you in Sydney?
I live in Waterloo, so it's just sort of in towards the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Absolutely love it. Very envious of you.
What a small world. Dulwich Hamlet is my local club. I used to live in Bondi years ago when I was exactly your age. I used to wear an England shirt as well, walking around. I got a load of stick. Back in my day, it was Italia 90, the old Gaza shirt. I'm really pleased as punch for you today, George, that you got a ticket. It's going to be the day of your life and something you'll cherish forever. Well done.
Yeah.
Superb.
Cross fingers and everything else, but yeah, have a wonderful, wonderful day, won't you? Yay.
Oh,
Thank you so much. Enjoy yourself as well.
Well, yeah. Don't think that way. But give our love to everybody in Australia as well. But you're very courageously wearing an England shirt walking around.
That's great. It's great. But isn't that what football's about, Aidan? It's about that rivalry. And actually, the fact that we've been getting loads of stick from the fans and every game's felt like an away game, anything has helped the team to focus.
I think one of the local papers was caught spying on England's training, weren't they?
Yeah.
Before the semi-finals.
Was it a drone?
Yeah, it was a drone.
They had a drone, yeah.
Exactly.
There'll be a lot of that.
I know, exactly. But Dulwich Hamlet, yeah, that's where Ian Wright came through. Dulwich Hamlet.
He did many years ago. Still going strong.
Good non-league side.
Yeah. Fantastic for her, though. She'll never, ever forget this.
No, gosh, no.
And I've been to that ground. I watched England play at that ground. A mate of mine got arrested as pitch invasion.
It's brilliant enough to be living in Sydney, I think, at the moment. She's physio. She's probably very interested as well in the sort of fitness aspect of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, brilliant. If you're watching, I know we have lots of viewers, and hopefully you're watching at the moment in Sydney or throughout anywhere in Australia. Do get in touch and tell us what it's like for you today as a Brit, but maybe you were supporting Australia. I don't know. Give us a buzz. Or when I say give us a buzz, I mean drop us an email. gbviews@gbnews.com.
You got it.
Why
Sweet,
don't I
isn't it?
get it right?
You always get it right, Anne. Moving on to our next story. If, like me, you struggle to get your full 8 hours of sleep, why not try an afternoon nap? Because new research says a 20-minute nap in the afternoon can increase alertness and performance for the rest of the day.
Only 20 minutes. That's the trouble. If I put my head down, I'm out for a couple of hours.
I was yesterday.
You should also eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, take on healthy habits, such as regular napping, could apparently reduce your chances of having a heart attack or a stroke.
OK, let's talk now to Dr Lindsay Browning, sleep expert. Lindsay, when you get to my age, naps become more of a necessity than something that you plan in, especially when we work at regular shifts like this. I did 3 hours yesterday. Turned out to be a disaster. I napped too long. I couldn't sleep at night time. So what's the perfect nap routine?
Sure. So after lunch, just after lunch, then we naturally have a bit of a dip when we're kind of biologically supposed to have a nap. And, think about Spain and having the siestas. And 20 minutes is a fantastic length of time for that nap because you'll find yourself having enough sleep to feel refreshed for the afternoon, but not having too much sleep that you affect your night's sleep that night and have too much sleep that might have negative health impacts for the rest of the day.
Right, yes. So it can actually... Why does a nap... why is it good for your heart, for instance? Why could it help prevent strokes? What's it actually physically doing for you?
Well, when we sleep, our body does a whole host of amazing things, and one of which is to help repair and regulate our heart. So it makes absolute sense that getting enough sleep, and if you don't get enough sleep at night, then maybe this little afternoon nap will help to top that up. Giving you that bit of sleep, helping your heart to rest and repair, giving you not only some more energy, like I said, and alertness for the rest of the day, but also helping your heart health, which is incredibly important as well. But it's that timing that's so important. And like yourself, you tend to have a nap and it goes on too long, you wake up after an hour feeling groggy, then if you set an alarm for 20, 25 minutes after you've laid down, then you'll find yourself making sure that you don't sleep too much and keep that nap at that really good optimal length.
So, Lindsay, what about pre-nap, as it were? Because, I mean, I won't lie to you, I do like a pint. And it just helps me to chill out. But then the problem I have is that 20 minutes is a non-starter. It's always going to be an hour or maybe longer. So, I mean, how do you train yourself to be able to do 20 minutes? Because once I'm down, I'm gone.
Well, alcohol and sleep are really not best friends. I mean, as much as I like an afternoon pint as much as the next person. But when we have alcohol, it makes us fall asleep very quickly, but it changes the quality of our sleep. And actually, you'll find yourself almost unable to wake up after 20 minutes because that alcohol is making your sleep very different. So I would really try to avoid alcohol before you have a nap because it's just going to make the nap not as good quality as you want it to. And before you have a nap, do things like, if you're having a nap at home, go to your bedroom, put even an eye mask on to block out the bright daytime sunshine, maybe some earplugs, and set that alarm. That's the key, so that you don't sleep in so much longer, and keep yourself to a 20-minute nap to help you feel really topped up and refreshed for the rest of the day so that you can get on with the day. But definitely don't have a nap before the England game today. Make sure it's after.
It's funny because there have been some very famous nappers, haven't there? I mean, you think of Margaret Thatcher, who said she used to have a nap, particularly in the car or something if she was going somewhere. And Churchill always had a nap. So perhaps historically they knew something that we're talking about now.
Yeah, well, you think about culturally, if Betty lived somewhere hot, everyone has a nap in the afternoon, or at least they did before the world changed. So, yeah, biologically, it's almost like we are supposed to have a nap at that point in the day. It's what our biology wants us to do. It's natural. And, lots of research like the study you're talking about today proves that it not only makes us feel nice, but it actually physically makes us more healthy as well.
You mentioned having an eye mask, the old Top Cat job. But one thing I find works for me is white noise. When my first baby was born, I used to turn the radio on the static because it creates like a steady background noise. So especially in the daytime, if there's like a bang outside or a car goes past, and I've got a fan at home, I turn my fan on just for a steady background noise. I find that works because that way you don't get woken up because there's much more noise in the daytime, isn't there, than there is at night time. Is that useful?
Absolutely. So I always recommend to people who work shifts, who have to sleep during the daytime, that not only they use an eye mask and earplugs, but some kind of white noise machine. And whether that be an actual physical machine that you buy, or like a radio that you just tune into between the radio stations, or a fan, or even an app that just produces that level of noise. Yeah, white noise, you described it perfectly. It produces all the different frequencies of noise at the same volume, which help to block out any barks outside, any children screaming as they're going to school, those kinds of noises that will jolt you out of sleep. So yeah, a white noise machine when sleeping somewhere noisy or during the day is a fantastic addition.
Weird. That is weird.
No, it works.
No, if it works, then it's worth trying. But gosh, can't believe it. Thank you so much, because as you can imagine, here in the Breakfast Television team, I mean, we are obsessed with sleep.
Yeah.
When you get sleep, whether you've had enough sleep, worrying about sleep, sleep is like our major thing. So it's great to have something to think about there and maybe to try. Dr. Lindsay Browning, thank you very much.
You're absolutely
I could not
right.
stand white noise, though. I'm sure I couldn't stand it.
It's a strange thing, because at first, because I had my baby in my room, because, I was worried about, as a new parent, you do. And every single kind of murmur, every single, just had me bolt away.
That's right, yes.
Because that was my instinct, and I was there to try and care and nurture. But in the end, I was exhausted.
Yes.
Because the baby just makes noises in the night time, and I was waking up the whole lot. And so I got into the radio station between the channels noise, and it worked wonders. When he actually woke up properly and was properly crying, then I woke up.
Yeah.
But I wasn't waking up for every little toss and turn. It worked.
I don't like having the eye mask and the earplugs either.
No.
Because I feel like I don't know, there's something tortuous about that.
Yeah,
I don't
he's
like
too enclosed,
Yes.
too claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
I no longer have a little baby sleeping in the bedroom with me, but I do have a dog who insists on sleeping under the bed, and she makes noises all through the night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I wake at that all the time.
Yeah, well, try some white noise.
I should probably drive her nuts as well.
Yeah.
Certainly worth a try.
Yeah.
OK. But don't go to sleep. Stay with us. Lots more to come on the programme. You're watching Breakfast on GB News.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. So the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, 1 or 2 on the heavy side, and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away. They actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearer skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light, and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday morning. So bright start across England and Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 showers in the far west, and then we'll see more persistent rain coming into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move through the day. Some of this rain could be heavy at times across much of the UK though. Another bright day, sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of them on the heavy side, but most places staying dry, and temperatures again in the southeast towards 25.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Are the Scots watching for England to win?
I'd have thought not.
Archie says, not all Scots want England to lose. I am one who will be supporting the Lionesses. Thank you.
And this is very interesting from John. Martin, you've still got until 9:30 a.m. to get your England shirt on. Do you know what? I'm going to do that. I've got it out there. It's hanging up. I don't want to do it throughout the show. It might be inappropriate. There's some serious stuff as well today. But for that final half-hour blast, so I'm going straight from here, I'm not going to lie, to the pub, and I'm going to watch this match, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it. 16 days without a break. This match is my reward.
Yeah. You won't be so tired you'll fall asleep, will you?
I hope not. Give me a kick if I do.
Pam in Malden, morning Pam, says, I really can't get excited about today's match. I won't be watching it, and I don't know anyone else who is. Is it really that popular?
And this is great from Sean in Glasgow. All power to you, Sean. As a British guy, a Scottish guy, I will be watching the game. Good luck to England. Thank you, Sean. See the old enemy coming together.
Yeah.
Bit of armistice today on World Cup final
Why
day.
not?
Thanks.
Just get excited for the people playing. It's the players.
Good lad.
Garrel says, I'm up and getting ready for the match today. How exciting is it? Yikes, nail-biting stuff. I'm nervous as heck, but I just know England are going to win 2-1.
Everyone keeps saying 2-1. I think there's something in it. Get a few quid on that.
Maybe there is, yeah. Dawn says, I'm with you, Anne. I've never been bothered before, but I can't wait for the game today. Come on, England. It just would be so fab, wouldn't it, to see football coming home.
Yeah.
Why isn't Prince William going? Why isn't Rishi Sunak going? They should be there. I know it's a long way, but they should be there, don't you think? In fact, Prince William, I don't know if you saw, did a little video sort of, not explaining why he's not going, but sort of apologising with little Charlotte next to him.
Yeah, and he was...
Let's have a quick look. I think we've got it.
Lionesses, we want to send you a huge good luck for tomorrow. We're sorry we can't be there in person, but we're so proud of everything you've achieved and the millions you've inspired here and around the world. So go out there tomorrow and really enjoy yourselves.
Good luck, Lionesses.
It's the first time we've really heard from her,
See,
isn't it?
it's cute, but I'm not being funny. There's a whiff of a hostage video about that.
Do you think?
Because,
Yes.
because he's had so much...
we'll have to do something.
Yeah, he's had so much stick for not...
Yeah.
Oh, of course he'd be there if it was the blokes. He'd had so much stick, he had to put a statement out. You sort of felt like he was doing that through gritted teeth.
Yes, sort of.
Do you know what I mean?
And he didn't say why, did he? But they're on holiday together, obviously. But it's something. I don't think it's enough, really, is it? Somebody should be there. Somebody very special should be there, roaring on the Lionesses. And the King actually also put out a statement saying, keep roaring or something, didn't he? But
it's all a bit lame. And he is top brass at the FA, William. So I think of all of them, he's the one that should have been there.
I wonder why not. I know. Never mind. Anyway, let us know what you think on that one, gbviews@gbnews.com. Plenty more to come, including those fake signs to keep Brits off Spanish beaches. Tell you more in a moment.
I love that.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
6:31. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast here on GB News with Anne and Martin.
Great fun story, this, because the sunbed war at popular tourist spots is now taken to a new level, as Spaniards have been putting up fake signs with falling rocks and jellyfish to deter British tourists from hogging primo beach spots.
Yeah, there are fake signs saying things like the beach is closed or there's sewage contaminating the water. And these signs have been spotted in various popular locations like Mallorca. And it is thought that it is a way of actually putting us off going and hogging prime spots on Spanish beaches.
I've got to say, I probably should be annoyed about this, but I actually love it. Joining us now is our travel guru, Simon Calder. Good morning to you, Simon. First of all, as ever, we've got to ask you, where are you today? Are you there, mate?
Hello. Well, very nice to talk to you from here at Gatwick. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing any incoming sound at all, but I'm going to try and tell you what I think is going on in the resort of Manacor. Well, this is the area to the east of Mallorca. And what's happening is that you have, unfortunately, a group called Caterva Manacor who are putting up signs. You can see them there, which warn of falling rocks. Now, the big problem is that, unfortunately, those are not true. They're also warning about jellyfish. They're warning about water contaminated because of sewage. They're saying, oh, if you want to walk to the nearest beach, it's 2 hours 53 minutes, whereas in fact the actual correct time is going to be just 1 hour, about 1.5 minutes. So they're putting up these signs. They say it's because tourism is taking over in that part of Mallorca. I've seen elsewhere in Mallorca, in the capital, Palma, signs saying tourism equals terrorism, which is a bit extreme. And of course, almost everybody who is lucky enough to live on the island of Mallorca is extremely welcoming, because they know that the reason that the island has become the richest part of Spain is simply because they've got so much tourism. And I tell you what, there's a real problem with these signs, and that is that if people are warned about possible dangers and then they discover, oh, well, this is just something which some of the locals are putting up because they don't like tourists much, then of course when there's a real danger they may simply ignore the sign. So I'm afraid it's one of those things where it's getting lots of publicity. It's of course raising the question of over tourism, but at the same time it's presenting a bit of a danger as well, of course, as being a bit of a nuisance, because most of us will of course obey signs which warn us of dangers.
OK, Simon, I know that you can't hear us, which is a shame, so I'll just say thank you, yeah. And you can go, because we know that Simon he's at the airport. He's always going somewhere, isn't he? But he's at the airport because he's got a plane to catch, literally. Yeah. And he could only give us a couple of moments there, so we'll let him run off and catch his plane.
I wonder if people out there are annoyed by that. I find it quite humorous. I think it's quite clever. It's like guerrilla marketing, a bit subversive. It's trying to shoo tourists away. On the other hand, don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Well,
I mean,
exactly, yes.
There's a lot of money being pumped into Spain, in particular. It's the most popular tourist destination for millions and millions of Brits.
It's lovely.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and a lot of money in Mallorca.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is from
There's no need to
Brits.
be horrible to us tourists, is there? As long as we behave ourselves as well, I suppose. Do stay with us. In a couple of moments, we're going to be looking through the Sunday newspapers.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The time is 6:37. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Martin. Shall we have a look at today's newspapers?
Yeah, the Sunday Mirror leads with Lioness We Can. Nation rules our heroines on as team promise game of their lives. As England face Spain, of course, later this morning in the World Cup final.
And The Independent go with families demand full public inquiry into killer nurse as Lucy Letby joins the grim list of Britain's most notorious serial killers.
Boat crisis is EU revenge for Brexit. On the front page of the Sunday Express, a former British borders chief has suggested that the migrant boats crisis is a punishment for Brexit.
That was yesterday's story, really. I'm surprised they were going with it again today. The Mail, the Lionesses, of course, possibly becoming the first England side since 1966 to win a senior final on the global stage. King Charles urging the team to roar to victory. And that's the front page of the Mail on Sunday. So shall we go through the papers now? Joining us this morning, editor of Spiked, Tom Slater, and author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. And a very good morning to you both.
Superb. So,
right.
Tom, let's kick off the ongoing inquest, which is going to be extraordinary now, into the circumstances surrounding Lucy Letby. I mean, it looks like now the whistleblowers, the doctors who were correct and often were forced to apologise, are now after the managers. Tell us more.
Well, that's one of the details about this which is so shocking. Obviously, there's the horror of the crimes themselves, but also there's the details that have since come out of the way in which time after time you have particularly consultants but other people who worked at the hospital with Lucy Letby raising these concerns, even at one point, as you say, being forced to sign this apology letter to her specifically. It seems like there was such an incentive on the part of the hospital to not only tamp down the concerns of these whistleblowers, but to keep it very much out of the police's remit. And so naturally, a lot of the discussion has turned to there's obviously very tight regulation of people who are doctors themselves. Why is that not applied to hospital managers? You know, in the same way that a doctor can be struck off, could you strike off a hospital manager if they were proven to be acting in such a horrendous fashion, not least because of the fact that the chief executive of this particular hospital went on, even after this scandal, to some quite lucrative positions. It's one of those difficult things where in the wake of something horrible like this, the desire is to find some kind of neat mechanism which would stop it from happening. I don't think you can ever really find anything like that. These issues are often, you know, cases like this are mercifully incredibly rare.
I mean, there's parts of this you just can't forgive, can you? Because you if your major consultant doctors, tried and trusted professionals, come to you, and not just one, but there were about 6, I think even 8 at some point, keep coming to you and saying there's something going on here. We may have a murderer in our midst, and to absolutely dismiss them is just you can't get your head around that.
You can't get, and I agree it's unforgivable. And I think in this particular instance, of course, everyone involved in essentially what some are calling a cover-up should be held to account for it. I think the issue is there's always this desire to introduce some sort of tick-box process across the whole piece, which isn't necessarily going to resolve the issue. But I think anything that's going to create more accountability for those managers is obviously sacrosanct, because you can't have an issue where people are not just failing upwards, but failing upwards after the most horrendous kind of moral failures. That surely can't be.
But it is true, Nikki, to say that it seems, a bit like with the Rotherham grooming gang scandal, you know, when a crisis hit, their natural instinct was to kind of try and protect themselves. And if you were one of those staff who blew a whistle on a serial killer and you were correct and you were forced to apologise to them, now you're going to be spitting feathers, aren't you?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, the thing is about clinicians is that they're not only profoundly medically skilled, they know a lot about people. Because actually, being a really good clinician is reading between the lines of the information that patients don't tell you, isn't it? It's figuring out the backstories for why somebody is presenting to you with certain kinds of symptoms. So they're actually really good readers of people. So I think it is 7 or 8, isn't it? So if you've got 7 or 8 of them repeatedly saying, you really need to watch this person, especially in that power dynamic, because usually these kinds of incidents happen when somebody's in a position of seniority. Well, the nurse wasn't. So that makes it even more incredible that it was ignored, because they would have more knowledge and insight about, you know, whatever she was doing. So I find that very disturbing. And also, I mean, many years ago, I actually worked in clinical negligence in the NHS. So, you know, I read some very horrific things but they were always genuine mistakes. They were always things that had just gone horribly wrong in theatre, or, you know, somebody who wasn't well trained had administered the wrong drug or something like that. And the painstaking time we took to investigate all of it and to actually rule out kind of criminal doings. And this was, I'm talking like 15, 20 years ago in the north of England. I won't name the hospital. But, you know, the process for that is definitely in place. So I don't understand what's happened here. And is what we've really got to get to the root of, is it just this particular hospital, or does this happen in every NHS
Apparently, in one of the newspapers says this morning that they've launched an investigation into 4,000 other babies that Lucy Letby handled.
And
4,000?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And they're now fanning out across her whole career, where she trained in Liverpool, other places that she worked at. And it's just, especially when the circumstantial evidence was so strong. I mean, when investigations were first launched, they found out that she was the only one common denominator in terms of who was working. Why, in that situation, you don't even just say, look, we're going to press pause, investigate. We can't just ignore red flags like this. They pressed on regardless. It really boggles the mind, definitely.
And how did they come to the conclusion to ask the consultants to apologise to her?
Because they reckoned they'd actually come to the conclusion that it was a witch hunt.
Yes, right.
And the doctors were actually sort of out to get her.
Which just beggars belief, doesn't it? It doesn't make any sense.
It's a story we're going to talk about throughout the rest of the morning. Let's move on now to the football, of course. You may have noticed there's a football match today. And it's that time of the year, isn't it, panel, when people either pretend to like it or get behind it for brownie points, or maybe they're genuine fans. But there's been a lot of stick about who isn't going there. Prince William isn't going, Rishi Sunak isn't going, King Charles isn't going, but of course he's roaring from the sidelines.
Well, yes, so he's put out this, I don't know if it's a tweet, but it's appeared on social media, I think it might be an Instagram post, saying, "Good luck today, Lionesses, and may you roar to victory, Charles R." And everybody's sort of clapping about it. But I've got to be honest, I think it's really poor show that none of them, between them, are going, especially when Queen Letizia of Spain will be there with her daughter. And I think it's a bit cheap of Prince William to put Charlotte in a video to sort of say, well, you know, I do support women after all. And because the thing is, he loves football. He's really into it.
Well, he's top brass at the FA.
Absolutely.
Have you seen that video? Because I watched it a minute ago, and I think, Tom, it feels like a hostage video. It feels like he's reading from a script. You know, he's been forced.
Someone's brandishing a weapon behind the camera or something like that. Does have that sort
he's been forced into this position. Of course, there's been so much hoo-ha about him not going, and we know he'd have been there if it was the blokes.
We should have a national representative there. I think it's poor show.
It is a poor show. It's a shame. Let's hope it doesn't put them off.
Yeah.
I'm sure it.
I don't think it will
despite.
No,
they really will. Tom, to the Sunday Express. I mentioned I was surprised because I thought this is yesterday's story that we're all reckoning that the problems we're having stopping the boats and a lack of cooperation or perceived lack of cooperation from the French is their revenge for Brexit.
Yes. So this is writing up the comments of the former UK border chief, who has made the point that the EU are basically just digging in their heels on this particular question, and I don't think you have to be a kind of paranoid Brexiteer to see that you've got a bit of a point. I mean, on any, if you remember, we have any kind of row with the EU or with leading EU member states, and you've got Macron threatening to turn off the power to Jersey or whatever. This kind of recrimination, shall we say, have been a feature of the post-Brexit sort of arrangement, and they hide behind process, don't they? You've got Macron saying this isn't. You've got to negotiate with the EU. The EU says computer says no because we don't have a mandate and so on. And yet, when push comes to shove, the EU rules don't tend to mean too much if they need to cut a deal and they feel politically able to do so. So it is one of those things where, of course, you'll have Remainers saying, well, if you wanted an EU returns deal, you should be a member of the EU. But surely, if the EU lives up to its supposed humanitarian values, they should be deeply concerned about the fact that people are taking this perilous journey. They're departing from the EU in order to take that perilous journey, and surely it's within everyone's interest to stop that from taking place. So even though, as you say, it's a bit of yesterday's news, I still think that he's got a point as far as this is how the EU have taken to behaving.
I wonder if they have got a point. And I'm the first to have a pop at the French, but. Can the Tories ever just take responsibility for this? So they're going to blame the ECHR, the French police, Keir Starmer, lefty lawyers, the civil service, the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Come on, you're in charge. You said you were going to stop the boats. You're not. Isn't this just like convenient scapegoat-ery?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like this story. There's something about it that seems a bit odd. It just seems to be a hint of bitterness, especially if this is a former British border chief. Perhaps there was an argument about why he isn't there anymore, or she. I don't know if it's Mel, actually. I mean, I think the problem with this story is that actually, if the Tories admitted we've made mistakes and now we're going to rectify it, and then actually got the results, people would back the policy.
Yeah.
And they're not doing that. And instead, you keep getting these distractions. So I don't think it's the best move for the Tory party. I mean, not that they've done it on purpose necessarily, but whoever's had a conversation about being the front page of the Express, maybe they should have thought twice about that.
Yeah, that's the thing. They always look for scapegoats, but how about taking responsibility? Let's move on to your story here, Nikki, in the Daily Mail. Our good old friend Sadiq Khan making headlines again. What about this time? White families don't represent real Londoners.
Well, this sounds like something that's happened in the office, in the Mayor's office, where people have had a discussion about suitable pictures to illustrate London life. And somebody's taken notes, maybe written some notes on something, and then it's somehow made its way out into the public and it should never have been seen.
Oh, I see.
But because the kind of language used, and when you kind of read the whole report on it, the Mayor's spokesperson actually said the photo caption was added by a staff member in error. So that suggests it was somebody...
So the photo was published on the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a photo of a white family, man, wife, 2 kids, walking along. I think you can see the Parliament in the background.
Yeah.
And then somebody has written over the top, these white, they don't represent real Londoners.
Yes.
And what the heck? I mean, how did it get out like that in the first place? But everybody's now asking you, OK, Sadiq Khan, what is a real Londoner?
Yeah, so now
why can't a white family be a real Londoner?
Wow.
Well, absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there's obviously been some kind of discussion, because the other comments as well, that, criticising a picture that looks like... I don't know, it's like some corporate... taken from some corporate video or something, and it says, look, staged and set up. So it's obvious this has come from some kind of discussion. And it's also obvious that somebody in City Hall has leaked this. I think it is. Leaked it on purpose because they've had enough of the kind of discussions. Yes, absolutely.
It's interesting, Tom, because, we say all the time, look at that photograph, it ticks every diversity box, short of there being an amputee. It seems like that's the direction of travel. Now it seems that this is actual City Hall remit.
No, completely. And it's that really unpleasant kind of like racial identity bean counting, which seems now to go into everything, not just public relations, but to all sorts of different things. And again, you're having a conversation about who doesn't constitute real Londoners. It's a kind of inverse version of something that you'd hear the racist right going on about not too long ago. And it's just really unpleasant. And I think the thing about stories like this is when they get out into the public domain, it just gives people a little bit of an insight into how entrenched in that way of thinking a lot of people in positions of power are. So even though it's a bit of an embarrassment, it's a bit of a silly, embarrassing story for Sadiq Khan, it reflects a general mindset.
It does, and it's not very nice, is it? OK, we've just got a minute left, so let's talk about the cost of a wedding.
So the average cost is up to almost £25,000.
That's the average cost of the average wedding.
Exactly. I'm not sure if that's the median or the mean, how they're calculating this. I'm sure there's some people who are really pushing up the average on the one end. There's some examples in the story of people floating down the aisle on kind of some sort of helium balloon rig. Drones apparently very in favour now.
Drone videos,
As if you ever would look at your drone footage of your wedding.
Gather round, kids, we're going to watch the drone footage of the wedding.
I find all that stuff ghastly. And I must say, this is part of the reason I'm not married. I've been with my missus well over 20 years.
I didn't know you were not married.
No, I call her the wife, but I call her a lot of things.
I think like Giles Brandreth always talks about his wife. He calls her his present wife.
Yeah. I call her the commandant and other things too. But 25 grand on a day when people are barely struggling to buy a house, maybe it's helpful to explain why people aren't bothering.
Well, I don't know how anyone's got the money. I mean, I will be really honest. Before COVID hit, I was going to have a very expensive wedding. There was probably around that figure. I'll be totally frank.
Wow.
And it was so over the top. We were having alpaca champagne bearers. I'm not even kidding you. I know what I sound like right now. I'm telling you because it's just so outrageous what we had come up with. It was in this beautiful barn and kind of like by the lake, and the alpacas were going to bring everyone champagne. And our sausage dog was coming with an outfit on. And
sausage dog
and then COVID intervened.
Somebody spiked my drink. What am I hearing?
I have to set myself up because when I think back to it,
say thank God for COVID.
And then we ended up being married just with a witness each and a photographer, and it was the most gorgeous day ever.
Superb,
And then we had a party 2 years later for everyone.
Yeah.
So actually, we saved loads of money. It was fantastic. And now I just think, what on earth was I thinking?
All for it. OK, we have to leave it there. Tom
Anyone
Slater,
watching
Nikki.
at the moment, please get in touch and tell us how much your wedding cost.
Yeah, 25 grand. Alpacas with champagne. I've heard it all.
I know, that's amazing. Tom and Nikki, thanks very much. We'll see you again in less than an hour. But right now we're looking over the pond, because if you think politics is crazy here, you only have to look over the pond and see that it's even crazier. Donald Trump's lawyers now have asked the judge who's overseeing his election interference trial to push back the start date by 2 years. They've requested the trial begin in April 2026, a year and a half after the next election.
And in other news, the former president will also no longer hold a news conference nor release a supposed report detailing election fraud claims in Georgia.
So, what's happening? Did he lose the evidence, or perhaps he meant that he'd release his tax returns, perhaps? Let's speak to the former Clinton and Bush advisor, Steve Gill. And a very good morning, Steve. What on earth is going on? I mean, every single day things get crazier, don't they?
Good morning, guys. And can I first point out that as a former divorce lawyer, let me say, divorces are always more expensive than weddings. So we got to get to that point as well.
Very true.
It is like Groundhog Day, that old movie where every day you wake up, it's another indictment, it's another delay. And I'm going to be going through this certainly for the next year or two. Part of it is that these trials involve, and first of all, they're all over the country. In some cases, you got highly confidential documents that first getting the lawyers through the security process to be able to view the documents is going to take a lot of time. And then we start thinking about getting a jury that you're going to have to pick that's also going to have to go through the security process to be able to show them some of these supposedly highly confidential documents. That's going to be a basis for delay. In this newest case that's been indicted that they're trying to rush to trial, I think there's over 11.5 million documents, something like 10,000 hours of videotape from the so-called insurrection and riot on Capitol Hill. Just going through that evidence as a defense team is going to take a mountain of time, and trying to rush this thing to try to have a quick trial is all about politics, trying to get a trial quick before President Trump becomes the Republican nominee for president and maybe wins the presidency.
OK, Steve, often in these circumstances, the process is the punishment, isn't it? Just dragging Trump's name through the courts to try and inflict damage during the primaries and moving forward. But critics of Trump say these are the most serious charges he has faced yet, the alleged rigging of the election in Georgia. How much substance do you think those allegations contain?
I think they increasingly look weak as some of the charges are examined more fully. And I do agree that part of this is just to bleed money from Trump. A significant portion of his fundraising for the presidential campaign is going to paying legal fees. I think the last count was $30 or $40 million. And again, I say as a lawyer, I haven't been included in any of that. But it's also bleeding the resources of those that are sort of lower level staffers that have been indicted. One individual was indicted in Atlanta for setting up a conference room for the president to have a meeting. You call a hotel, you get a conference room, that's going to get you indicted as a criminal offense. You have another instance where the chief of staff, Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff for President Trump, has been indicted and charged a criminal charge for calling Congressman Rick Perry in Pennsylvania to get the phone number of two elected officials. That's exactly what a chief of staff does. And he's been indicted for that, for a criminal offense. This is intended to run up legal fees, to put pressure on these folks, to break them, frankly, financially. And that is the punishment they're seeking, because I don't think they can get actual convictions in these cases. Mark Meadows, by the way, is trying to move his case to federal court and out of the hands of the local Atlanta DA, who is an elected official playing to her elected base. Okay. He's trying to move to federal court. I think a lot of these cases will end up in the same way.
Okay,
well,
Steve,
you and we are going to get to know each other awfully well over the next year, aren't we? Because we're going to be talking about it every day. Steve, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Right, we're heading towards weather time, aren't we? I think we ought to go for the weather now.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Well, the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, 1 or 2 on the heavy side, and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away. They actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearest skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light, and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday.
The temperature's right.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Sunday, the 20th of August. Today, decades in the making, the Lionesses will take on Spain in the World Cup final for the first time. Kick-off at 11 a.m. And they are, aren't they, bringing it home?
Yeah, they're going to do it. And the government is looking to change the law on forced criminals such as serial killer Lucy Letby, who was convicted of 7 murders, to attend their sentencing. Is this the right thing to do?
And dental hygienists could be allowed to administer certain medicines without the need for a prescription. Would that make it easier for us all to get to see a dentist?
And it's been much calmer weather-wise yesterday. Please, will it last? I'm off to Tenby. Greg Dewhurst from the Met Office, please bring me some good luck. Here's your forecast.
We have plenty of sunny spells in the forecast, but also a scattering of showers. Find out all the details with me coming up in the programme.
Well, whatever, you're going to have a great day, aren't you? Because we're going to be watching, I can't believe I'm saying this, going to be watching the football later, and that'll give you the feel-good factor. A very good morning to you. I'm Anne Diamond.
And I'm Martin Daubney, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
I tell you what, Anais says it very nicely. Morning, Anais, is that how you say it? They say, as a Spaniard, I am roaring for Spain, but the real winners are women, regardless of the result.
Yeah, and
I think that's lovely.
I think that's great. What's been really interesting is people putting aside their usual partisan attitudes, particularly the Scottish. Here's another Scot, Campbell, says, I'm a Scot, but I've been living the last 14 years in Oxted, Surrey, with 2 lovely daughters, brought up as 100% English, and we've been so loyal in our support for the Lionesses throughout this fantastic campaign. Today, we're with all of their young friends, and I'll be screaming support for the England team to win. So, Campbell, a pure Scot, rooting for the Lionesses. Good on you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anne, good morning, Anne, says, I don't think it's fair saying that Prince William should be flying all the way to Sydney to watch the Lionesses. It's a great achievement by the girls, but it's not yet a major event for everyone. Ladies football is still growing, and this tournament will certainly be good for the game.
Well,
but he is the president of the FA?
The FA, yeah, and June brings up the opposite point. I think Prince William or the Prime Minister should have attended the match. My 2 granddaughters who live in New Zealand have managed to get tickets to the final. Could they not say hello to Demi and Kelsey, please? Yes, hello,
Hi, Demi and Kelsey.
There you go.
Yeah.
Enjoy the match.
Actually, Paul has emailed in too, and it makes an interesting point because you might well be clinching the point. He says, the Prince is not going to the Cup final because the King has not yet visited Australia. It would be breaking protocol for the Prince and heir to the throne to visit before the King, with the King being their figurehead.
Interesting.
That is quite interesting because there are funny little royal protocols like that that actually could be holding things up.
But if that's true...
Why doesn't the King go and support the girls?
But if that's true, just say that, and I think people would understand that. It does feel like there's a bit of smoke and daggers going on, and I think it looks a bit clumsy.
It does, doesn't it? But, yeah. Well, when we get Prince William in the studio, we'll ask him.
Yeah. Come down, mate. You'll be welcome any time. We'll cross-examine you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, of course, the big question today is football finally coming home. England's women have made it to the World Cup final for the first time ever, looking to repeat what the men did way back in history. 1966.
And, of course, the match kicks off at 11 a.m. this morning, GMT, as we take on Spain just 1 year after beating the Germans in the Euros final.
We reckon that's 8 p.m. in Sydney.
It is.
So, can we do it? Aidan McGee is here. He reckons we can, but it'll go all the way to extra time.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, it went to extra time last year when England played Spain in the Euros. Georgia Stanway scoring for England, that was 2-1 as well. So I wonder whether psychologically that could play on Spanish minds. I mean, there have been some personnel changes in the England squad. Yeah. Not as many for Spain, but I think if you've beaten a team relatively recently, 12 months ago or 13 months ago, whenever it was, I think that might play into the minds of both sides, actually, when you go into the next game, relatively soon after.
When someone like you says it's going to go to extra time, does that mean you expect it to be incredibly close?
Yes, yeah. Well, not necessarily. I mean, we have seen one-sided draws, and sometimes the team are quite defensive. I think England will have less of the ball today. Some bookmakers are making Spain favourites.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You can get 7-4 on Spain, 9-5 on England. I still make England favourites. I think I had England's favourites before the tournament started.
But a lot of that, though, is because a lot of fans are lumping on England and it artificially puts England down. It doesn't actually reflect the odds.
Not necessarily.
And I know that from somebody who loses a few quid on football. In terms of the personnel of the squad, for those who haven't been out there following this from the beginning, who are the standout Lionesses to watch today, Aidan?
Well, I've picked out 5. 4 of them were winners in the Euros last year. Don't forget, we suffered 3 knee injuries from last year's tournament and 2 retirements as well. So they've managed the squad quite well in terms of the turnover. But Ella Toone is one I've been looking out for. Now,
we've got a picture of Ella, so because we all need to learn who to watch out for on the telly. That's Ella, yeah?
She plays for Manchester United, 37 caps, 17 goals. That's a hell of an output for a midfield player. Now, she scored the first goal against Australia. That means that the advent of, or the reintroduction, rather, of Lauren James isn't necessarily taken as read, because although she's considered to be a generational talent, Ella Toone scored that first goal against Australia. She has match-winning experience. However, if Ella was to drop to the bench, we saw last year at the Euros, she's well capable of making an impact from the substitute bench as well.
Came on and steamed in.
I can't imagine that Serena Wigman hasn't made that decision already, especially relatively close to kick-off. I'm still 50-50, but I think she'd be reluctant to change a winning team.
So you mentioned Lauren James there. She got the red card. It's called a David Beckham moment.
It was
have we got a picture of Lauren? Because we need, again, I want to know who to watch out for.
Lauren James,
to be able to recognise.
So Lauren James, so that's the
Lauren.
kick. That's the kick out against the Nigeria player in the first round of the knockout phases.
There she is.
She's the younger sister, aged 21, of Reece James, who's one of the best footballers in the world right now, I think, in the men's game for Chelsea. 15 caps, 4 goals. She's just recently moved from, or in the last couple of years, moved from Chelsea to Manchester United, but 21 years old. She wasn't in the squad. She's only one of my 5 picks who wasn't in the squad last year. But as I say, we'll be seeing a hell of a lot of her. And 2 goals against China in the group stage, 3 assists as well. Had it not been for that petulant kick, she would have played more of a role in the knockout stages.
Want to talk about a Nottingham lass, the goalkeeper, Mary Earps? Yeah,
she's been around the block. She's played quite a few teams. She played for Nottingham Forest. She played for Doncaster as well. Currently with Manchester United.
There she is. That's Mary.
That's Mary there as well. I thought she was positionally at fault slightly for the Australia goal on Wednesday, but look, she's a winner from last year. She's in line for the Golden Glove. I mean, she's only conceded 3 goals throughout the tournament. And we all have to accept that goalkeepers do make mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that pink kit is going to be very collectible, because there's been a bit of controversy over that because Nike don't sell it.
They don't.
And so she's been airbrushed out some of the photographs for Nike's marketing, which I think
she's
is a
also,
bit saucy.
Well, it is. I mean, she's also one of the most recognisable players as well. I mean, it just seems quite a foolhardy strategy from Nike. In fact, I know somebody, Mark Spencers, who's watching this with keen interest, because it's in their interest for England to win, because it means that their suits are seen more often because they supply the suits for the Lionesses.
Oh, is that right?
It is indeed. Jess Carter, we should mention as well, Chelsea defender, been very successful as part of a back 3. A winner last year, of course, 25 years old, ex-Birmingham City, and has been a real key player this tournament. And Alessia Russo, very proficient up front, scored in the last two matches against Colombia and against Australia.
She's the most recognisable to me at the moment. But
I
don't really know why.
24 years old. She's just joined Arsenal, actually, from Manchester United, so she's been used to playing for some top clubs.
And we spoke to a fan earlier who's going to be at the match today, Georgia, down under in Sydney.
Yes.
And she was pointing out, you heard how the crowd have been very hostile. I'd expect Russo to get a few whistles and boos today, because she was the one that scored the final goal against the Matildas and destroyed their dreams. Well, so she might get a bit of a stick.
Well, you say dreams. I mean, I read on a website today, quite a respected website, that this was the semi-final against England was the biggest, most watched TV moment in Australian television history.
Is that right?
Really?
Which I find astonishing.
Wow.
That's more than Scotland Charlene's wedding in Neighbours in 1987. Although I think that was a bigger event in England than it was in Australia
I think you're
at the time,
right.
But that's astonishing,
That is quite astonishing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, what's the population of Australia must be in the 20 millions, I would have thought. So, I mean, if you look at the...
How many watched it?
I don't know. I'll check the number for you next hour. But if you see the population is around about 22 million, I think. I might be wrong, but if you get 8-9 million watching it, and I think, and as Georgia said in the last hour, I mean, in the stadium, even the teams that have been knocked out are still represented, so they're staying down there, not as if they're throwing the toys out the pram and going home. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Well, it'll be an
Fantastic.
event for us. Shall we speak now to former referee and FIFA instructor Janie Frampton, who joins us, I think, she's from in Birmingham at the moment.
Yeah.
Hi, Janie.
Hi, good morning.
It'll be an understatement to say you must be looking forward to the match. What are your thoughts?
Oh, Anne, I can't tell you, I am beside myself. I am absolutely beside myself. And Aidan, good morning. It's, I have to say, agreeing with Aidan is quite a surprise, because I do say with him that it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be really close. And I also believe it'll go to penalties. But I think where we have the edge, our mental strength right now is phenomenal. And I think that's what will take us through the penalties.
And I wonder, as an instructor yourself, how important practicing penalties must be for the Lionesses, because there's been a lot of criticism of the men's team in the past. They just didn't take that serious enough, even though we kept losing at penalties. It would be the ultimate accolade, not only to win the European Championships and the World Cup, but to do it on penalties. 3 things the blokes haven't done in ages.
Yeah, and you know what? Everybody they can practice on the training ground to take penalties. That's actually not the most important part. It is about having that focus, that concentration, that absolute mental strength as you walk up to that ball. You know, I've seen it so many times. I can almost look at the face of the player and know whether they're going to hit and miss, because, you know, whether they do it with confidence and focus and strength and belief. And this squad has all of those things, which I've never seen so much in any of our squads, be they the men or the women. And that's what I think will take them through.
Penalties. But you reckon that we've got the mental strength to win on penalties?
Yeah, I do.
I don't think I've got the mental strength to
and
watch
I think,
it, though.
You know, like Aidan, I'm not sure whether I'll have a pillow over my head at that point.
No. Exactly.
But it is important. There's a huge.
No, go on. You're speaking.
Sorry, we've got a bit of a delay here. There's a huge difference between your technical ability and your mental strength. And that is what I think is going to win the game for us today. And I've not seen that, not in any of our squads before. The girls showed some of it in the Euros. And as this tournament's building, they've shown it game on game. And they are phenomenal.
And Janie, we spoke to a fan, Georgia, who has tickets for today's match. And we've seen, particularly against the Matildas, a lot of hostility from the crowd down. And we're hearing a lot of the Australian fans are going to be backing the Spaniards today, as you'd expect. How much of an influence is that on referees? You're a referee yourself. Do you think the referee down under might be swayed by that, or will they be sticking to neutrality? Because we're hoping that will happen.
Absolutely. There's two things in that point, Martin. One is just look what we did in the semi-final. You know, that stadium was full of Aussies. You know, and I think I saw some stats that it was only about 5% British there. So that's not going to bother the players. It's not going to bother the referee. And one thing you need to understand about refereeing, when they step on that field, everything else around them goes. So it doesn't matter what a crowd of 70 or 80,000 are chanting or the noise. It is just white noise. Referees don't hear it. They just don't hear it.
What about you, Janie? I mean, are you going to be sitting at home watching it on the telly, or have you got somewhere special to go and view it?
No, I am going to be watching it with friends on the TV. And I have to say, I almost don't want to watch it. It's almost too big to watch because, you know, the fear factor. But I am so looking forward to it. I really am. And what this is going to do for women's football, even the fact that we've made the final, is huge. And I think along the way, I've been in football.
One of our lovely viewers emailed in about half an hour ago saying, do you know, even if we don't win, God, I can't believe I'm saying it, but whoever wins, it's actually women who win in the end, because this is now major. We're all talking about it. It's global.
It's huge, you know, and I've been in football for more decades than I care to remember, or that I'm certainly going to say on TV. And I just look at the journey when I started playing as a teenager, where there were very few playing opportunities. And now when I listen to the investment made by the FA, the Premier League and the government in girls and women's football. So girls have accessibility. And I think so importantly, we need to get it in schools more. So girls as young as 7, 8 can just go out and kick a football and have fun. And that's what I think this World Cup is going to do. It's going to inspire a whole generation of girls who just will accept that it's right for them to play football too.
Yeah, Janie, I was just doing a quick check there while you're talking. I feel much more relaxed about who the referees are today. Tori Penso, Brooke Mayo and Catherine Nesbitt, they're all Americans, so that's not so bad. It could have been worse, could have had a few Germans in there. So that should help to set us at ease, do you think?
I do. And actually, I was considering, because I know how FIFA work, because I've been to many of these World Cups as the technical expert for officiating and as an instructor. So I know how FIFA work. And the only way we could have had a European official was if 2 European teams were in the final. And when I saw Spain and us, I thought, oh, OK, they could bring in a European referee, which in my eyes would have been Frappart or somebody like that. But the American ref is very experienced. She's done 5 games in this World Cup, which is phenomenal. If you get 3 games, you've had a really good tournament, and she's had 5. So she's obviously very, very experienced.
Janie, do you think we should be bothered that neither the King nor Prince William nor even our Prime Minister has bothered to go out to Sydney to watch them?
I have to confess, I am disappointed. There's several alignments that if this was a men's World Cup final, what differences would we see? And I could name many, but I think that would be unfair without doing some more due diligence. However, I do think the Prince should have been there. or the Prime Minister. And Anne, you made a really valid point earlier about the protocols of the royal family, and I understand that too. That's the first time I've heard that muted. However, if the Prince couldn't go as president of the FA, I do think the Prime Minister should have gone. Mm-hmm. It sets a really big sort of message out there, and that's not one that sort of sits comfortably with many.
OK, Janie, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you for your enthusiasm. I hope that you've got a few hours now to kill off. I know what it's like trying to kill off those empty hours. I normally do the blinds, I water all the plants, just anything at all.
What, when you're waiting for a kick-off?
Yeah, I have to do something. I just have to take my mind off it. Otherwise, I get so nervous I pop open cans. You just got to keep busy, do the hoovering, anything it takes.
Do the hoovering,
no, me, I do anything. My house is never more clean than before an England match.
Well, Janie, anyway, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for helping us celebrate what's going to be a victory later on. Thank you. That's referee and FIFA instructor herself. Yeah, Janie, thank you very much. By the way, Tina has emailed in. Hi, says, please give a shout-out to the GB team in the World Athletics Champions in Budapest today. Football is not the only sport today.
Yeah, fair point, but they're going to play second fiddle on the Lionesses Day. That's just the nature of the beast. But great excitement in the air now. It's really, really bubbling up. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Now, to the story which, again, is dominating the newspapers today because so many issues are still bubbling up and it appears there's going to be an awful lot more facts that we need to figure out, and that's the Lucy Letby case. As many of you will know, Lucy Letby was convicted of murdering 7 babies and the attempted murder of 6 more at the Countess of Chester Hospital. But
she will not be attending her sentencing and will not have to face the families she has destroyed. This morning, GB News is asking, should she be made to? Should murderers be forced to attend their sentencing?
Because under current law, criminals can choose not to attend the proceedings in court. And this means that they will miss the victim impact statement, for instance, as well.
Yeah, well, join us now as political commentator Piers Possinger to discuss this. Good morning to you, Piers. Possinger, this is a huge issue. We've seen recently with the murder of Olivia Pratt. Corbell, Thomas Cashman chose not to attend the final verdict. Lucy Letby getting the same privilege. Many will feel that once again we appear to have a criminal justice system that favours murderers and not the families and those of the deceased.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, Martin. And particularly in this case, don't forget, this was the longest murder trial in UK history. Yeah. It went on for 10 months. And the point about sentencing and the guilty party being present is also to give some closure for the victims' families, who were, of course, all in court for 10 months. And for the person who's convicted to be able to say, well, I'm not going, I'm not turning up for this, why should I, is absolutely preposterous. And, of course, it's become a trend, and once that happens, they all start doing it. And I hope this, I believe in the King's speech, they're going to bring up a proposed law that will mean they'll have to turn up and face the music. And I'm sure that this is not a party political point. I think it'll sweep through Parliament and hopefully become law very soon. I think one of the things about Letby is there are going to be so many... We live in a culture of endless inquiries and investigations that go on for years, and by the time they've concluded, goodness knows anyone remembers what's going on. In this case with Letby, the NHS management really needs to be brought to account. And Amanda Pritchard, who's seemingly invisible as the CEO of the NHS, all she's done to date is send a letter to the NH Trust directors and senior management saying, you've got to listen to whistleblowers more carefully. Well, I'm sorry, where's the apology? This was human life, and at the most innocent stage being taken, and it's very hard to talk about this without getting very angry. Yes. Because we all know the NHS needs reform. I mean, this might be the tipping point for the NHS, because I think there should be a proper Royal Commission to look at the NHS. 1.2 million employees, 48% of whom are non-medical. I mean, it's a staggering...
48% are non-medical?
48% and are non-medical. That's the staggering amount. Now, admittedly, a lot of them are junior administrative people, but also think of the numbers of management. We're talking about 500,000 people in management. Now, it's overburdened, it's badly funded, it's badly structured. Let's face facts and let's, again, make this a non-political area and get people together and do what we need to do, which is really reshape and restructure our NHS to get back to what it should be doing, which is looking after patients and caring for the people of this country.
Should it be run by doctors?
Well, doctors do not necessarily make the best managers, and clearly, I mean, managers are not doctors, so it is a bit of a problem there. Some doctors run very efficient practices and are very natural business administrators. But I think you've got to have a very strong medical input because otherwise, you obviously you can't provide what the doctors need.
Yeah, but on this issue of the legal overhaul,
yes.
I just believe it's long overdue. We cannot have a situation where a serial killer won't even have the ability, the families, to look her in the eye. And for her to hear the impact that she's had on their lives and devastated them, she has the choice. She has the power. I think that's completely and utterly wrong.
I totally agree with you, and I mean, I think everyone in the country would agree with you. This is not something. If you're the worst serial killer in history, I'm afraid some of your rights are going to disappear. But one of them is you're going to have to face the music, and again, it's also from the benefit of those people involved in the trial as well, so that they can actually see for themselves justice being done. Justice needs to be seen to be done. And in cases like this, it's absolutely incredible to me. I mean, when they started doing this, it seems to be a recent thing. When they started doing this, I thought, how do they do this? Surely they've got to be face the music. And it should happen.
The only problem I have with it is that, for instance, if Lucy Letby were made to stand there and hear the witness statements and face the music, as you say, what if she's just sullen and doesn't care and looks as though she doesn't care? Could that be even more hurtful for the families? Or if she throws a wobbly and starts shouting, could that make it worse for the families?
It could, yes, you're right, of course. But I still think that doesn't detract from the point is that she should be made to behave. And again, if she starts behaving badly, she can be... the judge can give her a contempt of court and get her removed.
Or there could be additional sentencing powers. I mean, in this case, she'd like to get full term anyway. But it just seems to me that the power balance is completely broken. And I wonder what viewers out there think. You know, if this happened to you, you would want that moment, surely, to look this person in the eye and let them know how you felt.
Well, when they brought in the witness, not the witness statement, the victim impact statement, most people take up that option to do it because they want to say how badly they've been affected and hurt. And most people do it.
And it should be their right to do so. I hope the King's Speech has resonance, Piers. Thank you very much for your input today. Thank you.
Do stay with us. It's 25 minutes past 7. We've got some weather for you.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. For the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, 1 or 2 on the heavy side, and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away, though they actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearer skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday morning. So bright start across England and Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 showers in the far west, and then we'll see more persistent rain coming into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move through the day. Some of this rain could be heavy at times across much of the UK though. Another bright day, sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of them on the heavy side, but most places staying dry, and temperatures again in the southeast towards 25.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, Martin here is getting a little bit more happy about
Yes.
the way the weather's looking in Wales. Yeah,
It looks all right. Come on.
absolutely. Yeah, but you'll be watching the game on the big screen in Paddington Station.
I will. And come rain or shine, I'll certainly be watching that one.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got lots more to talk about, so don't go away, including dental delays and how to improve our chances of getting to see a dentist. That's coming next.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast here on GB News with Anne and Martin. We've been talking earlier about the cost of, the average cost of a wedding has gone up to something like 25 grand now. And I was asking you, have you spent 25 grand on a wedding? What would you do?
There's a great one here from Alan. My friend's daughter got married last year and they spent 24k on the wedding. Well, 4 months later, they separated and subsequently divorced. What a complete waste of money. In fact, that's 6 grand a month.
Terrible, that is. Callum says, my beautiful wife Susan and I had our wedding on the 15th of May 1992 and Susan's dad paid 29 grand then for our wedding. It was a great day with over 250 people at the church and a big meal. Best thing was Aberdeen. The best thing, he says, was Aberdeen's greatest player, Willie Miller, was at our wedding, which made my day. You mustn't go around saying that was the best thing about your wedding day.
Well, to be fair, Willie Miller, that's a bit of a ledge.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, you'd be made up to have. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, Eddie says my wife and I are married after we left home and went to London with the intention to work and travel. We married at a register office with one witness and then asked a taxi driver to be the other. All of this cost us around £3. And we're still married 52 years later. Now that, Eddie, is VFM.
Yeah, that's very, very good. Lovely. I don't think there's any correlation. They always try to argue that there's a correlation between if you do a big wedding, you're more likely to stay together or whatever. I don't think there can be a link.
Well, that hasn't happened. £3.
Not bad, eh? Right, now to the price of dentistry instead. The government is planning to grant more power to dental hygienists so that they can administer certain medicines, for instance, without the need for a prescription.
This comes after the growing frustrations over access to dentistry and reports that some people were forced to take their teeth out themselves at home, especially, of course, during lockdown.
I know, I just can't believe people did that, though. Joining us now is the founder of Bespoke Smile Advanced Dentistry and Academy, Dr. Sam Jethwa. It's lovely to see you again.
See you again.
What does that make you feel when you heard those reports of people pulling their own teeth?
Yes, well, it's not the first time we've heard it. I've been here talking to you about it before, and it is a shame, isn't it? It's not what we would expect from the healthcare provided in our country. So I think these progressions from the government are a step in the right direction, but we have a broken system. It's all just patches around.
So what are they proposing about hygienists or hygienists?
So I think the first thing to do is define what a dental hygienist is. So a dentist will see you, you'll see them for your checkups and dental treatment. A dental hygienist is a core part of our team, so they generally look after your gum health and overall oral health. A dental hygienist nowadays are also trained to be a dental therapist. So they're able to undertake, for example, children's dentistry, certain assessments and checkups, and also deal with routine kind of care and certain fillings and things as well.
Oh, they can do fillings.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, right, okay.
However, a lot of that they're able to do is actually under a prescription from a dentist. So this reform that they're suggesting is to try and make that process a little simpler, to give the hygiene therapist the autonomy to actually do that without a prescription.
But it would seem like common sense. I mean, we've seen a similar thing with pharmacists being able to have the power to administer prescriptions in routine cases where there's little risk. It seems to be a great idea just to increase bandwidth to allow those more minor things to get in. Because, I mean, even trying to get a checkup, it took me 3.5 weeks to get a checkup recently in my dentist, and I'd ended up getting so fed up I paid to go private. So there's a lot of restricted access. This is a good idea.
Yeah, so at the moment, a hygiene therapist will be able to see a patient directly. It's called direct access. But then, after that point, they have to actually get prescriptions from the dentist. So when I say prescriptions, I mean things like administering an anaesthetic. You need a deep clean, for example. The dentist would have to do that. So there is a delay in that process. And I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a good thing to allow trained dental hygienists to be able to do this. The problem is there's not sufficient numbers of dental hygiene therapists working in the NHS system specifically.
Here we go again.
And it's the same issue.
It's still not going to make things better or improve our access to an NHS dentist.
Not quite. I can't see how this is going to improve access. It may well improve efficiency, and then eventually that may lead to access. But ultimately, we have not enough hygiene therapists, not enough dentists, too many people needing care. And also, it's not about patching up. You know, if it's administering a prescription for an antibiotic, for example, that isn't dealing with the root cause of the dental issue, and so we're just pushing things kind of like through COVID time.
I've got to say, when you mention injections as well, it's my least favourite part. I don't suppose I'm unique in that.
No.
And I want somebody who knows where to inject, because I mean, I've sometimes had like 7 or 8 injections trying to numb a tooth off, felt like a pincushion. Right. So the idea of somebody who's not as trained doing that, is that something people should be concerned about, or are they as trained as the real deal to do that?
Absolutely. Dental hygiene therapists go through enough training to be able to do that safely. You know, they may not have the 5 years or 6 years at university, but they have a 3-year and sometimes 4-year training program. So they're fully trained, and we have a hygiene therapist in our team, and she's a core member of our team. We couldn't work without her. The maintenance of our patients, and even cosmetic treatments such as whitening and taking X-rays. They're a core part.
Yes, I mean, there are a lot more
trained.
treatments available from a dentist nowadays, aren't there?
Absolutely.
And it makes sense to, if somebody is trained, they are a professional, to actually acknowledge that and let them do their work.
It's a shift in the patient's thinking as well. So it's good for us to kind of be talking about this today and introducing people who may not know about the hygiene therapist as a real respected member of the team that you can see safely and not be worried about it.
So the big question, Sam, if we all agree this has merit, sounds like a good idea, will it mean we can get quicker dental appointments?
Fundamentally, I can't see how that is going
You reckon
to
the
change.
system is still broken?
Yeah, these are steps in the right direction, but they're sort of just plasters trying to keep the wound in place. I don't really see it as a solution.
Drat.
Yes.
Sadly.
Yeah, drat. I was hoping that might short circuit, you know, what I often face is lengthy delays, even getting routine checkups, but still, step in the right direction.
We need more. We need more dental hygiene therapists, and we need more spaces for them in a system that actually allows them to see more
But
patients.
giving them adequate, responsibilities makes it a much more interesting career choice too.
Absolutely. It's becoming more and more interesting to be a hygiene therapist, and therefore, hopefully, there'll be more spaces made available. But then when they have the spaces made available, they do graduate, and then where do they work?
Yeah.
This is then the problem again.
Superb stuff. Sam, thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, do stay with us, because we're going through the Sunday newspapers in just a few moments.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. I know, yeah. Please stop. Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point.
And action.
Sergeant, the Big my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think. Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Martin.
Yeah, let's take a look at what's in today's papers now, with the front pages first off. Daily Mirror, Sunday Mirror, leads with Lioness, we can. Nation rules.
It's Lioness, we can.
Lioness, we can, as in yes, we can.
Yeah, exactly.
A bit of a weak pun, that, lads. Anyway, Nation rules, our heroines on as team promise game of their lives as England face Spain, of course, later this morning, 11 a.m.
The Independent go with families demand full public inquiry into killer nurse as Lucy Letby joins the grim list of Britain's most notorious serial killers.
And with the Lionesses possibly becoming the first England side since 1966 to win a senior final on the global stage, and King Charles has urged the team to roar to victory. And that's on the front page of the Mail on Sunday this morning.
And to the Express, boats crisis is EU revenge for Brexit. That's on the Sunday Express's front page. A former British borders chief has suggested that the migrant boats crisis is a punishment for Brexit.
Well, it's time to go through the papers now. My favourite part of the show, joining us this morning, is the editor of Spite, Tom Slater, and author and broadcaster, Nikki Hodgson.
Yeah, Nikki,
Top of the morning.
Nikki, you've really got people going on about weddings. Just in case you weren't around about an hour ago watching us, Nikki is telling us that her extraordinary wedding that she was going to have and then COVID stopped it. Thank goodness is all I can say. She was going to have alpaca ring bearers. But anyway, it's got
champagne bearers.
Oh, champagne bearers, sorry.
I didn't go the full.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's not ridiculous at all then. But
yeah, it's not better.
But since then, we've had some amazing stories of how much money people do spend on weddings. Sue in Cheshire, though, puts a lid on it. She says, I got married in 1973. My wedding dress cost £35. I tried one on that I also really loved, but that one was £70 and I couldn't afford it. I still have the bill for the reception, £29.44 for a sit-down meal for 60 guests.
Yeah, that's value. That's value.
That was 73 for you.
Can I just ask you, Nikki, what do you balance the champagne on their heads, or what? I mean, how does alpaca?
I was asking about this. The logistics
so
are
it
quite
looks
striking.
like a saddle, but it has a sort of room for a pot there.
Right.
Well,
as you do.
Yes, you do.
You can have one on each side. You can pour from both sides.
Oh,
They're only little, you don't want to weigh them down, but they can carry two champagne.
So it's a bit like in a Western where they have water sacks on the side.
Very similar.
Yeah, well, that's how the other half...
All right, well, let's not go there, because we'll get even more amazing stories of weddings. Let's move on to what actually is in the newspapers. And, Tom, kick us off with the Times and, obviously, the Lionesses.
Yes, there's a really nice piece by Martin Samuel, which is kind of comparing and contrasting the men's winning team in 1966 and the women's team, and talking about how much the game has changed. So talking about if the Lionesses win today, as we all hope they will, they'll feel much more kind of society than, say, the men's team do. So there's been a lot of talk about the £400,000 of sponsorships that some of the women might be able to hoover up if they win today, and yet points out that's what Harry Kane makes, in a week at Bayern Munich. And there's a lovely picture here, which is of George Cohen, England's right-back, in the summer of 1966, just mowing his lawn at the back of what seems like quite a modest house, and talking about how, in many respects, the men's team and the players there were in a similar position to the women's team were now. They weren't making crazy amounts of money. This was the era in which a footballer would aspire to make enough money to buy a pub and to get on in that sense, and how this could be the kind of cusp of the women's game starting to head for the stratosphere in the same sort of way.
It's a lovely piece, actually. I read that, and it harks back to an era when players are much more accessible to fans. They had regular jobs. They weren't making a packet. I mean, you could still see players on the bus on the way to the match back in the 70s. They were very within arm's reach, and, of course, that's all gone down the Swanee now. And is this the age of innocence for the Lionesses, and will it sadly or predictably, or maybe they deserve it? It'll go corporate and there'll be loads of money in the game. So is today the last innocent moment? It's a lovely piece.
Really nice piece. And one doesn't want to kind of engage in a kind of politics of envy where football is concerned. They work in a huge industry, they make a lot of money, there's so many eyeballs on the Premier League and so on. But you do lose something, don't you, when that goes?
Oh, well, we won't sort of let that jade our opinions, because at 11 this morning, we'll see whether they're up for it. Sunday Telegraph, Nikki, and... this is an extraordinary story about the fact that lots of young people are going to university because they can't figure out what else to do.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd take, actually. It's actually an interview with Education Secretary Gillian Keegan, who has basically said that, that's her view, that people just go because it's the expected pathway. And she makes the point that she didn't go to university initially, and then she had an apprenticeship which ended up paying for her to study later on, and she ended up with no student debt, and she said it's a very good way of doing it.
That's the way to do it, isn't it?
And of course it is, but obviously, those kinds of apprenticeships don't really exist anymore, or where they do, they're very, very tied to business.
And they should.
Specific. And of course they should be. But, for something like I studied English, which is just, actually has been completely vocational, because I've used it for speaking and writing, and I write books. I needed to do that subject to get on in life. But, she's kind of asking for us to rethink the need to automatically go. And makes the point that actually, when she was working, she learnt so much about managing people and about the actual industry in which she was working, that she was actually streets ahead of many of the people that she ended up working with. I mean, I think the only problem with this is, I take a lot. I really do agree with her on some level that actually. I do think Tony Blair made a mistake, back in the day of pushing everyone to go to university at any cost. And now we've got these sky-high bills and fees for our students to pay. We're having to bring a voucher. I know it's just a complete mess. But, I don't like the idea that we are looking down perhaps on intellectual knowledge as something that's unnecessary. Because I don't think it is. And I think back to, like my parents who didn't go to university and were kind of really, they took a lot of pride. They were working class people that took a lot of pride in reading and knowing about theatre and having interest in and understanding classical music, and it was all self-taught, and there was pride in knowledge, and I feel like we're in danger of losing that pride in knowledge if we go down this route with
I think she's got a point, to be honest. I know it's fashionable to have a pop at Gillian Keegan this week. She said nobody cares about your A-levels or ask you about them. Do you remember she said that?
I think she's right there too.
Yeah, and she's saying, and I definitely fit into this category. I didn't have a flaming clue what I wanted to do with my life when I was 19.
And also, I think you're too young at 19 sometimes to go to university. Not everybody is.
No, but some people definitely are.
If you're a classical musician, you need to keep your studies up throughout. But some 19-year-olds don't know what they want to do at all and go to university and find themselves flailing around a bit. Yeah. And actually, maybe they ought to go, and it would be far better if they went into the workplace and then later thought about university.
I mean, I think one of the things is if you go to work, the thing that we were always sort of taught in my family was get a job, any job, a part-time job when you're, a teenager, and you will find out very quickly what you don't want to end up doing, and therefore you want to go study and learn to do something else. And there's something to be said for that.
University is not just about qualification, it's also about socialising and other things too, which I think is part of the reasons why a lot of people kind of just take it as a 3-year kind of, buffer to work out what they want to do.
In the days when you could get a grant, maybe.
Yeah, you can't do that now.
You're paying right through your nose for a social life.
To be fair,
there are other ways to have a social life.
To be fair, I got a full grant, so it was an easier thing to do. I have to have 3 years of Tom,
anyway.
Let's move on. The mind wanders. You've picked on Sadiq Khan again. What's he been up to this time?
Yeah, so this is a really shocking story. We're 2 Sadiq Khan stories in this morning, but needs must, of him trying to silence scientists who claim that ULEZ had little impact on pollution. So this is a really murky story. So Shirley Rodriguez, who's the London Mayor's Deputy for Environment and Energy, she sent this email to a Professor Frank Kelly at Imperial College London, who had been doing research into the ULEZ, had actually received funding from City Hall in order to do this research, and was upset that it raised questions about whether or not this was actually effective, which a lot of people have pointed out, particularly with the expansion. Is this really going to make that much of a difference? And what was even more chilling, as an extra detail here, is that Imperial later agreed to kind of sign a sort of press release which tried to kind of square the circle and said, no, it has been a success in some way, shape or form. So the kind of corruption of scientific research and that kind of approach that we often see, which is you see this thing called evidence-based policy when really it's often policy-based evidence that's taking place. This seems to be another example.
And on the detail on that, it was very, very interesting because they looked at nitrous oxide and sulfides and particulates. And what they basically concluded was that this reduction was happening anyway because of cleaner burn motors and older cars naturally kind of disappearing from the roads. And so ULEZ wasn't specifically to blame or thank for a cleaner air net output. It was happening anyway. Sadiq Khan didn't like that, did he?
No, he didn't. And it's one of those things where I think when people read about this issue, there's a bit of a kind of confusion because people know walking around the streets of London today, it's smog-ridden, it's not pea soup territory. It has come on a long way and a lot of the move away from diesel cars in recent years when people clocked onto the fact that they weren't as environmentally friendly as some led on, has driven a lot of these things. But I think, again, it raises so many questions about, is this just a money-making scheme for the London mayor and for the mayoralty, given that it's in dire straits? Is it just a giant virtue signal which costs him nothing but costs motorists a hell of a lot? And it's the evidence in that column is starting to pile up at this point.
Let's move on to something we consider terribly important here, is the fact that Lucy Letby doesn't have to face the music. She can choose not to go to court. And you found that in the Telegraph.
Yeah, so it's about the fact that there's a law that is going to be included in the King's Speech, which will actually force offenders to attend their sentencing. Yep. Now, I'm a bit confused with the Telegraph here because it's sort of implying that this is because of Lucy Letby not facing her sentencing. It surely can't have been turned around that quick.
Nobody gets that.
No.
I think it was more driven by Thomas Cashman, who murdered Olivia Pratt-Korbel.
And that,
it was mainly
because he also chose.
He chose not to.
And I think Wayne Couzens, in the case of Sarah Everard, did the same thing, didn't he? So there's been a number of very notorious criminals that have, just refused. And Tom and I were talking about this. I mean, the practicalities of it seem quite complicated because there are obviously other countries in the world that already do this. America does it, for example, and where they can actually tie somebody up to force them to kind of come in and actually take any words of vitriol from the families of the victims, etc. I mean, I'm not really sure if you were dealing with a very hard and very violent criminal who you'd find willing to haul them in. But I do take the point that,
Judge's discretion.
It is, judge's discretion.
But if the judge were informed and actually maybe even met the person themselves and took his own decision about whether he felt it
which would be appropriate in terms of how the court works. I mean, the other thing I was thinking is, do you remember there was that scheme where certain criminals were introduced to the families of victims later on to have a conversation with them, and it actually had a really positive effect and definitely helped to reduce reoffending rates. So I'd be quite interested to see the sort of psychological research about how that works.
OK, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Nikki and Tom, thank you very much. Superb papers.
Yeah, stick with us. Plenty more to come. You're watching Breakfast on GB News.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. For the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, one or two on the heavy side, and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away, though they actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearer skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light, and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday morning. So bright start across England and Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 showers in the far west, and then we'll see more persistent rain coming into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move through the day. Some of this rain could be heavy at times across much of the UK though. Another bright day, sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of them on the heavy side, but most places staying dry, and temperatures again in the southeast towards 25.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching. Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 8 o'clock on Sunday, the 20th of August. Today, decades in the making, the Lionesses will take on Spain in the World Cup final for the first time. Kickoff is at 11 a.m. and we are confident they're going to bring it home.
And the government is looking to change the law and force criminals such as Lucy Letby, who is convicted of 7 murders, to attend their sentencing. Is this the right thing to do?
And judges at a US court say 2 men who alleged that Michael Jackson sexually abused them when they were boys should not have their cases dismissed. Stephanie will be here to tell us all about that.
And it's been calmer weather-wise yesterday. Will it last? Greg Dewhurst from the Met Office has more. Please give me some good weather. I'm heading to Wales after the show.
We have plenty of sunny spells in the forecast, but also a scattering of showers. Find out all the details with me coming up in the programme.
Well, a very good morning to you and welcome. I'm Anne Diamond.
And I'm Martin Daubney, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
How are you going to watch the match? Who will you be with? Where in the world are you watching it from? Tracy is in the Netherlands and she says, I've got big dilemmas here. I have dual nationality, British and Dutch. However, born and brought up in Scotland. My daughter is therefore half Scottish, half Dutch, currently in Spain at the house of her half English, half Spanish boyfriend's parents. So who is she going to support?
Yeah, well done. There's lots of Scottish fans out there supporting England today, which I find astonishing. I really don't think that would happen if it was the blokes' game. Another thing that's got people going is why isn't anybody attending from politics or the royal family? Keith in Redditch says this: has Rishi Sunak ever attended a sporting event whilst in office? Maybe he's not interested in sport just like me, or maybe his time is better spent trying to get us out of this mess that the country is in.
He went to a baseball match when he was in America.
He did, and he went...
we thought he was going to do the token throw or whatever they do, but he didn't. But he did go.
I think it'd be terrifying to do one of those baseball pitches. It's one of my worst. I've been on the spot and getting it wrong.
The world is on you, absolutely.
It would haunt you forever.
Yeah, yeah. So, the big question today, I want to hear from you about where you're watching it and how you're watching it. Have you got family around you? Have you got dilemmas like Tracy there, who you're going to support? Be lovely to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Yeah, because the big question is football finally coming home? England's women have made it to the World Cup final for the first time ever, looking to repeat what the men did way back in 1966.
Now, just in case you don't already know, the match kicks off at 11 o'clock this morning as we take on Spain, just 1 year after beating Germany in the Euros final.
Yeah, so can we do it? Well, let's ask our own very mystic McGee, Aidan McGee, who's been calling it everything right so far. How do you think it's going to go today?
I think England will take it in extra time. I think there'll be a psychological overhang from last year, 13 months ago. It was a quarter-final stage where England prevailed over Spain. Georgia Stanway scoring a winning goal after extra time. That time 2-1 it finished on that occasion as well. You have to consider where England have been on that journey since 13 months ago. They lost 3 key players, including the captain, Beth Mead, to ACL injuries. They've had 2 retirements as well. The captain, who's incumbent right now, Millie Bright, was a serious injury doubt going into the game. Going into the tournament rather. They scored 1 goal leading up to the tournament start in 4 matches. So they weren't in sizzling form. They took a long time to get going in the group stages, and they didn't really hit their straps until probably the 3rd match of the group stage. They struggled through against Nigeria in the first knockout phase. You're always going to get tough, stubborn resistance. Especially when the sport's growing and you're seeing teams, park the bus in a way and try and offer stubborn resistance against one of the tournament's favourites. But then, when a question was asked of them in the quarter-final against Colombia, they came back and rattled off 2 goals. Australia, let's give you a stat here. 25.6 million is the population of Australia. 11.5 million people watched that match. It was the biggest, most watched television event in Australian TV history, eclipsing even Scott and Charlene's wedding in Neighbours in 1988. Although, as I said last hour, I think that was a bigger event in England than it was in Australia.
That's nearly half the entire
It is. But what I'm saying is that crystallises how big an achievement it was, because the pressure was on England. They were behind. They were pulled back to 1-1 against the host nation in a rarefied atmosphere. And they had the mental fortitude to just score those 2 goals, swat the opposition aside, and that's why they're in the final today. OK, the Lionesses waltz past the Matildas. Today, who are the Lionesses to watch? I've chosen 5 in total. Ella Toone is one who could be at risk if Serena Vigman has decided to go for Lauren James.
Let's have a look at what she looks, so we can recognise her once the game gets started.
There we go.
That's Lauren. That's Lauren.
That's Lauren James. Well, we'll talk about Lauren James, shall we, for the time being, because she could be restored to the side today. She kicked out in the semi-final, or sorry, in the second round against Nigeria.
She had a red card, missed 2 matches.
2 matches, yeah, it could have been 3. So
would she be a good choice today, having missed a couple of matches?
Well, in theory, yeah. I mean, it's not enough of a timeout to affect her sharpness. You could also argue in tournament football, one thing you don't really have, Anne, is freshness, because you're going game to game to game.
Yeah.
You don't have rest. You often don't. I mean,
so she'll be raring to go.
Yeah. You would think so. I mean, I'd like to think she'd have a point to prove. She's a generational talent, no question about that. 21 years old, younger sister, of course, of Reece James, who plays for Chelsea, a world-class international player. So she could come in, but I think Ella Toone will hold her position in the starting lineup because she scored that opening goal against Australia. Having said that,
now that's Ella we're looking at.
Yeah,
now.
that's right. Yeah, so Spain are a possession side. If we invite them onto us, Lauren James might be the option on the counter-attack, using her pace and power, her directional play, and her ruthless finishing as well. 2 goals against China in the third group game.
I want to give a shout-out to Mary Earps in golf. Nottingham Lass plays for Man U now.
That's right, indeed. Yeah, she's played for a few clubs, actually. Doncaster, Leicester as well. She was a youth team player at Leicester, I believe.
I hope for her sake it doesn't go to penalties.
Oh, we've got,
Well, I don't know. She might do all right. You never know.
Yeah, well,
but she's been at fault for a couple of the goals, actually. Having said that, only 3 goals conceded throughout. She's a contender for the Golden Glove. She'll probably win that, come what may, provided she doesn't concede a hatful today.
OK, well, she'll be easy to recognise because she's the one in goal.
Exactly.
Alessia Russo is the one who scored the last goal we've seen.
That's right. She scored in the last 2 games, actually. So a player for the big occasions, seriously. 24 years old, 14 goals
she is.
in 28 caps. Very media savvy, as well, as you can see from that picture. Just signed for Arsenal from Manchester United, a Euro winner last year. And I think she's going to be one of the key senior players. Don't forget, we mentioned all the omissions from before the tournament owing to injury and retirement. She's one of the ones left over who really has got the experience to pull England over the line.
It's all about timing, isn't it? You just feel like she's just hitting the groove at the right time.
Yeah, you do. Well, that could be said of England as a whole. It feels like England's time to me. I mean, you know, they've already won the Euros. I think they'll win the World Cup today. They're not favourites with everybody, though. I mean, you can get 9-5 odds with some of the bookmakers today. Spain as low as 7-4 with some bookies as well. And they score a lot of goals, Spain, but they concede them as well. It's going to be an intriguing tactical battle in front of 83,500 people in Stadium Australia.
Can I confess? I always bet against England. I do.
Well, you shouldn't change your MO then.
And do you know why?
Don't jinx anything.
Because if England lose, the drinks are free. That's it. So you can drown your sorrows. It's just a little kind of tradition.
Yeah, but I'd be worried if you. Yeah, I think maybe you should keep your tradition.
What happens if England win? Do you then lose a stack full of cash?
I don't care. I don't care if I lose the bet, but if England lose and I get some drinks out of it, and I can just drink to forget.
Well, especially since you are going to be watching on Paddington Station.
Yeah.
You don't, and or in the bar at Paddington.
I'm in the pub at Paddington Station. They got a big screen. I've already checked out. I've got all the logistics worked out, and I'm going straight after the show. I've got my seat all teed up. Hoping, Aidan, you can pop over at some point.
Hopefully, yeah. But I'm committed to GB News throughout the day, so I'll have to be very conservative with my alcohol intake.
Well, I tell you what, we've got somebody really interesting for you to meet right now, because she is the founding member of the Women's Football Association, and she helped overturn the ban on women playing. And when I first read that, I thought, there was a ban on women playing? Look how far we have come. Patricia Gregory joins us now. A very good morning to you. It's absolutely wonderful to meet you. It really is. It's sad that it's virtual. I didn't even know there was a ban at one point on women playing.
Well, the actual ban wasn't a ban on women playing football. It was a ban imposed by the Football Association in 1921, banning women from playing on grounds under the control of the Football Association.
God.
But I come along in the 1960s, so 1967, and approach my local council in North London to have facilities, training facilities and a pitch, and they refused, quoting the 1921 ban. So that was really their interpretation. But it was widely felt to be a ban on... In effect, it was a ban on women playing football, but that was not the wording. And I was... Another small correction, I was only one of the people who helped found the Women's FA. The founding father, you could say, was Arthur Hobbs, who in 1967 was running a competition for 8 teams in Deal in Kent. And it was going to that competition to watch the matches that we first became aware that there were other women's teams. And out of the competition, eventually there were leagues and the association, which came into being on the 1st of November 1969.
So, Patricia, you got involved in '67, a year after that momentous World Cup win for the gentlemen. Comparisons are being drawn, obviously, today between '66 and now. How relevant do you think that is, or how helpful do you think that is to be judged alongside the men? Or is women's football now so capable it just stands alone as its own entity?
Well, I always think it's not really right or fair to compare the two sports. I know several men who say, oh, well, it's not as good as the men. But it should be looked at in its own right. It is a different sport. I mean, you just have to look at it separately if you possibly can. And the joy of any crowd, whether you go to a Women's Super League match or an international, to me, the joy is the makeup of the crowd. It is a safe environment. It's a happy environment for families, particularly. And that's why I think it's so very important that one of the things they should not do is start raising the prices, because the prices at the present time are relatively affordable for families. And this is what you want to encourage. And the product they're watching is, I would say, football in its purest form, without what I call the histrionics. And it's very, very important that you look at it in its own right.
Where will you be watching it today?
Well, I've got a problem. As in 1966, when I was at a wedding, and there were people in 1966 at the back of the church with tiny transistor radios. I'm due to go to a wedding.
No.
I actually have to hope that the match gets finished in normal time, because I've really, really, really got to leave the house by 1 o'clock, or I won't get to the wedding.
That is extraordinary. What a coincidence. What's your...
Well, I'm calling it, I'm liking it to a good omen.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's your prediction for the score?
Oh, I'm going to be boring. 2-1 to England in normal time, I hope.
Yeah. Good. Absolutely. It's a privilege to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on the programme.
Yeah,
brilliant.
Superb.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody's saying 2-1.
Yes, I know.
2-1 keeps going. Aidan McGee is still here. You said 2-1.
Yeah, you're not going to get long odds on that if everyone's going for 2-1.
Yeah, if you said 2-1 in extra time,
I did, yes.
Patricia's saying 2-1 in
normal
regular time.
Yeah.
She obviously knows her onions.
Well, exactly.
You know,
yeah.
2-1.
That's extraordinary about the wedding, though, isn't it?
I know, isn't that good? I mean, now you could sit at the back of a wedding and just watch it, watch the game on.
Yeah, you probably could, yeah.
You'd hear the other, yay!
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Oh, lovely. Anyway, yeah, let us know where you are going to be when you're watching it, you're with family, where you are in the world. Love to hear from you how you are planning to watch it, or whether maybe you're not at all. gbviews@gbnews.com. Get in touch, won't you? Now, on to a rather more serious subject.
Yes.
And it's one you can't avoid at the moment, because so many more aspects of it are coming through, and we're all asking questions to which there don't appear to be answers at the moment. Yeah. And that's the Lucy Letby case. As many of you know, former nurse Lucy Letby was convicted of murdering 7 babies and the attempted murder of 6 more at the Countess of Chester Hospital.
But yet she will not be attending her sentencing and will not have to face the families she has destroyed. This morning, GB News is asking, should Lucy Letby be made to face the music? Should murderers be forced to attend their sentencing?
Under the current law, criminals can actually choose not to attend the proceedings in court. This also means they obviously miss any victim impact statements, which they should hear, shouldn't they?
Well, join us now is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, with more. Good morning to you, Catherine. So, yeah, we've been asking GB News viewers this morning, should violent murderers face the music, particularly around the Lucy Letby case? And, of course, it's in the newspapers today that this will feature in the King's speech. So it certainly feels as though the political will is there to make murderers face the music.
Yes, absolutely, that's the case. The government have been talking about this for a while. Dominic Raab, the previous Justice Secretary, was talking about legislation back in February because, of course, Lucy Letby is only the latest in a succession of murderers who have decided that they don't want to sit in the dock when their sentences are given. And, you know, relatives reading impact statements, it really is the final insult. So now we're hearing that the government is preparing legislation. It will be in the King's Speech in November, that, as one Ministry of Justice source, will make offenders face the music or face the consequences. So what they're looking at is making, potentially having to use force if necessary to get people to come and sit in court. Also potentially giving longer jail terms if they try not to. But of course, it's not just as simple as that, is it? Because what could happen is they could be dragged up to court, they could kick or scream, they could be abusive, it could be horrendous. And also in the case of some of these horrific murderers, they're already likely to get whole life sentences. So the threat of getting an even longer jail term is going to be irrelevant to them. But certainly feelings are running incredibly high with this case, aren't they? And I think people are absolutely outraged at the notion that Lucy Letby, she didn't come for the verdict, she's not going to come for the sentencing, she's going to hide away after these horrific crimes that she committed.
Yeah, and I think the bigger concern here is this seems to be a new trend. Not only Lucy Letby, but also Thomas Cashman, who murdered Olivia Pratt-Corbell in Liverpool, Koki Salmaj, who killed Tija Sabina Nessa, Jordan McSweeney, who murdered Zara Alina. Three high-profile recent cases where, again, they've all chosen not to face the music. And it really does feel as though we have a criminal justice system that is placing the requirements, the privileges, the power with the killers and not with the families. And many, many people out there, Catherine, will feel this is a huge imbalance. And if they have to be dragged kicking and screaming, so be it.
Yes, as you say, Lucy Letby is the latest in a succession of high-profile killers not to come up and sit in the dock. But also more allegations emerging today about her crimes and the consequences that should follow, particularly around what the hospital bosses knew or didn't know or did or didn't do. It's now apparent that not only did the hospital bosses ignore repeated warnings from paediatricians, they actively sided with Lucy Letby. A story on the front page of the Sunday Times revealing that not only did she file a grievance against these doctors and they had to apologise to her, but hospital bosses offered to put her on a really high-profile children's hospital elsewhere. They offered to help her with a master's. They bent over backwards to come to her aid while belittling and threatening the doctors who had put two and two together. So it really does feel in many respects like there's a real imbalance here between the people, the whistleblowers, the victims and the killers.
I'm sure it's something that the People's Panel today will probably want to discuss. And that's why you're in Guildford, I think, at the moment. You're going to do the People's Panel for Camilla Tominey's programme, which starts at 9:30. Catherine, thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you. It looks as though the sun's coming out there in Guildford. And you'll be wanting to know, and you will definitely be wanting to know, what the weather is looking like. Here you go.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. So the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, one or two on the heavy side and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away. They actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearer skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light, and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday morning. So bright start across England and Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 showers in the far west, and then we'll see more persistent rain coming into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move through the day. Some of this rain could be heavy at times across much of the UK though. Another bright day, sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of them on the heavy side, but most places staying dry, and temperatures again in the southeast towards 25.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
So the weather's looking fairly good for you, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is Wales. Things can change, but I'm hopeful. I'm staying hopeful.
This is Wales. Yeah. Well, you chose to go there, didn't
you?
Yeah. But no, hopefully it'll be looking good. Actually, it's very interesting that you feel as strongly as I think we do. I think everybody does about the Lucy Letby situation and the sheer fact that a criminal cannot, or even somebody who is, still being judged, still has the right to say, no, I don't fancy going to court today. I don't want to face the music.
Yeah, so we've been asking you today, do you think this is wrong? And Valerie, in no uncertain terms, said this woman should certainly be made to appear in court to hear the verdict of the case against her. It's disgusting. She should have a choice, considering the hateful crimes she committed on helpless babies, and face the families.
Geraldine says, why can't a live video link be set up in her cell? And then if she becomes abusive, the sound could be muted, or I'm sure she could be restrained if required. But you were saying that it happens in America, so they must have already figured out how to get around that problem.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, it's judge's discretion. If everybody decides, and the judge ultimately decides, actually there is a danger that things could get abusive and out of hand, then he can decide whether or not. But the point is, it shouldn't be her decision, should it?
Yeah, precisely, and that is a point echoed by Donna in Dudley, a beautiful part of Britain. It should be the choice of the victim's family and not the criminal to decide if they attend the sentencing. Many people will agree with you on that point, Donna.
And do get in touch and tell us where you are watching the game today. Where, with whom? Are you surrounding yourself with family? Or do you find, is there a division in the house as well? Are the women interested in watching it this time and the men not? There's a very nice little cartoon in one of the papers
in the
today.
Mail.
Yeah, and there's a little lady sitting in the chair in front of the television, and she's obviously got the box on, and the England game is starting. And her husband is behind her saying, why don't you sit down, love, and you watch the football and I'll cook the chicken and do a Sunday roast? And she's saying, oh, my goodness, am I in a fairy tale? So are the roles being reversed in your house?
Well, I think that blokes don't need any second, chances to watch the match. So there'll be a lot of folding in behind the Lionesses, whereas I think there's a bit more reluctance sometimes for women to let the lads watch.
I suspect a lot of men may be watching, for the first time, actually, watching a women's game.
Yeah.
And actually will probably try to watch it, maybe try to show a bit of enthusiasm, but not find it anywhere near as entertaining as what they are used to.
Possibly, but then their interest will certainly be piqued by the fact they could watch it in a pub at 11 a.m. on a Sunday. That's a nice little Brucey bonus.
So you're going to the pub to watch it. Anyway, do let us know. gbviews@gbnews.com. Don't go away, because Stephanie's coming in to tell us the latest showbiz news.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle.
I know, yeah.
Please stop.
Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But boom.
And action.
Sergeant Reed, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Morning, welcome back. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Anne and Martin. Time is 8 minutes. No, sorry, not 8 minutes. It's 27 minutes past 8.
That's it.
I'll get it right. I'll learn to tell the time one day. Where are you watching the game? Who are you with? Val and Mick say we're going to be watching from Normandy, France. Just my husband and myself and the dog, feeling confident it's coming home.
And Mick in Brackley. Now, this sounds like a great one. I'll be watching it in the clubhouse at Brackley Town FC with my friends and fellow club volunteers. Bacon butties are on order and the bar will be open to celebrate the Lionesses' victory. Mick, very optimistic there, but that sounds like it'd be great to watch it in a local football club.
Bacon butties and beer sounds really good.
It does. Doesn't it? In a local football club, that'd be a great atmosphere. Send us in some pictures, won't you?
Yeah.
When England finally win.
Absolutely, yeah. GBviews at gbnews.com. You know how to get in touch with us. Now, in America, judges have ruled that 2 men who allege they were sexually abused by Michael Jackson when they were children can now revive a lawsuit against him.
Lawyers for the star, who died in 2009, maintain his innocence.
Both men were featured in that documentary, do you remember it, called Leaving Neverland, where they addressed their claims. Take a listen.
Hello, Wade. Today is your birthday, so congratulations. I love you. Goodbye.
There's no thoughts of this is wrong or anything like that.
He told me if they ever found out what we were doing, he and I would go to jail for the rest of our lives.
Secrets will eat you up. You feel so alone.
I want to be able to speak the truth as loud as I had to speak the lie for so long.
Ooh, chilling stuff, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing.
But you only have to say the words Michael Jackson and people are very divided. They don't know what to think. Joining us now is our showbiz expert, Stephanie Tecci.
Good morning, Anna
Would you
Martin.
agree? Yeah, I mean, it is incredibly divisive.
It is. I just think people loved his music, and it's almost now people feel guilty for liking Michael Jackson's music because of all these claims of sexual abuse that kind of tainted his career. The man's been dead for 14 years now, and still these allegations have not been laid to rest.
So what about these particular cases of those two young men there? Because, I mean, time and again, they've been dismissed.
Yes, their case that they've been trying to bring up, they've been trying to bring this up since 2013. Initially, it got dismissed out of court due to the statute of limitation, so they said they had passed its time. Then in 2020 in California, they introduced the statute of limitation again, but they gave an extension to survivors of child abuse. So they got in again through that way, through courts. A judge dismissed it because they're trying to now take it against Michael Jackson's estates. And the judge said at the time, well, we cannot blame the estate because it's more about Michael Jackson, who was solely in control. And of course, he's now died. So they took it to a court of appeal, and on Friday, a judge said, actually, the estates can be guilty of trying to coordinate and facilitate these boys going to see Michael Jackson by themselves. So they had a care of duty, which they didn't provide for these boys.
So in terms of...
men now.
In terms of resolution, what are they hoping for? Because obviously, you know, Jackson isn't there to face justice. He's departed. They're after money, right?
Martin, let's be frank here. It is all about the money because you can't bring Michael Jackson to justice. They've done the documentaries. They've spoken about this case time and time again. So I feel like they do want financial benefits. And this is where it always divides the fans, because these cases are very historic. Both men are in their 40s now. They claim they were abused by Jackson, one from age 7 to 14, another one was from 10 to 14 again. So you do think to yourself, why now? And money always seems to be the inspiration for that.
But if they deserve compensation, which they will try and... then they deserve compensation. You can't get away from it. And the money is sitting there.
It is.
So you can't blame them. If they really feel that they were abused, and who knows, then clearly they have a right to fight for some money.
And they've been fighting for almost 10 years now. They refuse to let it go. But the thing is, people will say they've done the documentary, they've put the story out there. So we've seen the kind of hearsay that they do say, because they could be correct, but what's the evidence that they can bring to trial? That's the thing. It's good doing a documentary, but if you're doing a court case, you have to bring the evidence, and now you're bringing it against a man who's died.
And it's a fascinating one because the evidence has been dismissed twice.
Yes.
So the actual evidence, were you abused by Michael Jackson, yes or no, has been found against twice. But this is a different one. It's were the state complicit in facilitating the allegations.
And that's what they're going to have...
their duty.
And so that's what they're going to have to prove, which I find might be a bit difficult for them.
But also, if they found that there was no abuse anyway, how can a state facilitate something which has twice been found to not happen?
Well, this is where they're really going to have to go back to a drawing board because, again, I've said they've had the documentary where they spoke about the abuse, but how now are they going to prove that the production companies were involved and were complicit in this? And we're talking about cases which happened maybe 20, 30 years ago. So even the people who were working for the production company at that time, you're really going to have to dig into past history and find out what happened, and things change. People's memory and recollections of stuff.
And it was a hugely divisive... I mean, the world talked about the documentary for so long, but it was massively divisive. I'm assuming the reaction amongst Michael Jackson fans is
he's still innocent. But the thing is, we're going to get more of these cases now due to this change of law. So this is not just Michael Jackson. We're going to hear about more celebrities over the next few years who are going to be brought to court, brought to trial over these historic cases.
Fascinating stuff. You've got another story about caffeine withdrawal. Adele has got the shakes.
Adele said she's given up coffee this week. She said she used to drink up to about 42 cups of coffee in a week.
Well, that is
overdue. So she's given up now, and she says that this week she's been left with the shakes. She's been having coffee withdrawal symptoms. She said she's been left with a migraine. She spoke about this during a recent performance this week during her Las Vegas residency. So she's saying she's finding it very hard. She's now swapped.
So she's sort of going cold turkey.
She has. So now she's swapped it for 25 cups of decaf, which she says is not helping her at all.
No.
But she says the adrenaline rush of being on stage is kind of giving her the same kick that coffee does.
And very typically Adele lingo. I decided this week to stop drinking coffee, and I've had a migraine all bleeping week. So she's still being Essex all the way through. Got to be said though, it's actually quite a wholesome addiction for a celebrity. Isn't it?
It is.
Coffee.
You know,
Well, it may just be one of her addictions. I don't know.
Well, she gave up smoking in, I think, the beginning of the year because she didn't want to damage her voice. So clearly the coffee must be taking its toll on her one way or another.
I've tried taking decaf instead of caffeine.
How do you get on with it?
Yeah.
I don't like the taste, but I don't know whether that's in my head because the taste should be the same.
I've never been a coffee drinker because I've got an addictive personality. So I know if I started drinking coffee, I would just be drinking non-stop. So I only drink herbal tea. So I can't feel Adele's pain on this one.
I tried herbal tea as well. I just don't get the satisfaction.
But you might draw the line at 42 cups a day, though.
Yeah, it is a bit much. Stephanie, thanks very much
breath.
indeed. Lovely to see you. Another ray of sunshine. Bright orange this morning. Absolutely fab. OK, right, we're going to be back with you in a couple of moments because we're going to be rootling through the Sunday papers.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com. You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
8:39, welcome back. Now, royal news. The King is about to hold a royal summit to decide the future of the monarchy and to carve out clear roles for the working members of the family. Apparently, that's according to the best sources. Yeah. This sort of royal summit.
Yes. The King will be meeting with Prince and Princess of Wales at Balmoral tomorrow, hoping to use the couple's fame in building a unified Commonwealth.
Yeah, maybe that's why neither of them are going to the big match in Sydney. Because they already had this in the diary? I don't know. They could have chatted about it on the plane, couldn't they?
Yeah.
Joining us now is Michael Cole, former royal correspondent and writer of these things, an absolute royal expert. Lovely to see you again, Michael. First, that's the question I should be asking you, because I'll bet you know. Why do you think the King and Prince William haven't gone to Sydney?
Good morning, and good morning, Martin. Well, I'll tell you one thing, and it's a spectacular own goal that they are not going there. Prince William is the president of the FA. Yep. His wife, Catherine, is always going on and supporting women's sports and indeed playing them at every given opportunity. They should have jumped on the last scheduled flight out there. They should be in Stadium Australia this morning. Their absence will be noted, and you must remember that the leaders of both Australia and New Zealand, the co-hosts of this Cup, are both in favour of republics. And I think it would have been a great opportunity for them to have been there. And they will be shown up by the fact that the Queen of Spain, Letizia, a former television presenter, I might add, Anne, so you've missed a chance there.
I did, didn't I? Yes, I did.
Michael,
and her daughter.
Michael, can I interject? Somebody has mentioned that, is it because the King, recently crowned, hasn't been to Australia yet, and he should be the first royal visitor? Is it royal protocol? Is that a sick note for William, or should he actually just have been on that flight to Sydney?
Martin, this event is very, very rare. There's a great opportunity. They should have been there. Protocol should have been out the window. Of course, the Prince and Princess of Wales are going to Australia and New Zealand, but this is a great opportunity to have been there, and they've been shown up by the Spanish royals because they take every opportunity to support the national Spanish teams, because Spain is riven by separatist movements in the Basque Country and in Catalonia, and they're always there. Indeed, I stood next to the King of Spain when he was still Prince of Asturias at a game in the box in 2010. He was there supporting Atletico Madrid. I was there as a director of Fulham Football Club, very proudly, in the first final of the Europa League. That was 2010. So I've seen at first hand how the Spanish royals do it, and I'm afraid it's a pretty poor show. There was an opportunity there to show solidarity. Otherwise, people will say, well, was it just talk? Was it just lip service? And it leaves them open to the charge of hypocrisy. If you can support something, you go out there. OK, it's a 22-hour flight. OK, it means interrupting the family holiday. But royal service is all about duty. And do you know what? I reckon that Prince George and Princess Charlotte would have loved to have gone too. Their royal relative, 16-year-old Princess Sophia of Spain, she will be there. Well, I think, it's very, very sad, and protocol doesn't matter at moments like this. The important thing is that there is a presence there from the top, because that's what the Prince of Wales and the King do. They represent all of us at a very important moment, and there has never been a more important moment in British sport for women ever. So why are they not there?
Absolutely. Very interesting you think that too. That seems to be what everybody's thinking, except them. Meanwhile, we're told that they are going to be sort of talking things over in Balmoral. And it is said in some of the papers that the King sees himself as a caretaker king, and so he wants to spell out exactly what he thinks William should be doing. Is that fair, do you think?
The constant concern of any monarchy is survival and then succession. And of course, we've secured the succession with the King succeeding his mother barely a year ago, just coming up to the anniversary on September the 8th. And of course, you've got standing in the wings brilliant people Prince William and Princess Catherine could not have done a better job. In fact, to return to the football parlance, they've been playing a blinder since they became a Prince and Princess of Wales. This is the only big mistake they've made, not going to Australia. So those things are very, very important. Survival, succession, and success. And this meeting up in Balmoral, which would be fairly routine. I mean, they have meetings from time to time. During the Queen's time, it was called the Way Ahead Group. They would plan out what they were going to do, who was going to go where, and how it was all going to pan out. That's normal. In any big corporation, it happens. Where you're sitting now, you have a meeting every morning and decide the stories you're going to cover in principle. That's what goes on, and that's what they will be doing. But it's no excuse for not going to Australia, to return to that theme. So, of course, it's important that they have these meetings. And when you say about, of course, the King is coming up to 74, is it, in November the 14th? I think that's right. But a short reign is not necessarily an unsuccessful one. His great-great-great-grandfather, Edward VII, reigned for only 9 years, from 1901 to 1910. And he gave his name to the Edwardian era. And in retrospect, it was seen to be a golden era of prosperity and enjoyment. He even had a Derby winner. He had the horse and led him in, having won the Derby. And I'll tell you one thing, the old Tommies, in the trenches in the First World War, 1914 to 18, they would turn to each other and said none of this would have happened if King Teddy had been around, because they knew that he was like the grandfather of Europe, and he had a word with his nephew, Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany, and said, let's stop this terrible nonsense which is destroying both our countries, and indeed did destroy the German monarchy, the Hohenzollern House. So a short reign can be successful, and I'm quite sure the King, who is very much growing into the role, I was never his greatest fan as Prince of Wales, but he hasn't put a foot wrong as monarch, and he obviously wants to see and hand on the monarchy, but I don't think he's going anywhere soon. He seems to be in good health. And he seems to be very happy at long last in his reign.
Yes, he does.
So, Michael, you can conclude as well, I think, with some degree of confidence there'll be no role for the Sussexes in any of this. Is this yet another kind of footnote towards them being written out of the British royal family?
Well, it's a very interesting point. Of course, he will remain the King's son, but it's a diminishing role. Never say never, but quite frankly, Martin, it's going to take an enormous apology, a sincere apology. Look, a prodigal son is always welcome home, but certain things have got to be required. Fences have to be made, apologies have to be made, mea culpa has to be made, because what has been said and what has been done is very, very wounding. And I think most men, I think, Martin, you maybe will agree with me, we can stand being insulted. My goodness, I've been insulted by experts over the years. We don't mind that. But when your wife is being insulted, and that's happened to both Prince William and the King, men don't like that. They don't like their wives being insulted, and they don't like their driving being criticised either. Otherwise, they can put up with almost anything.
And on that note, we'll say thank you very much.
Yes,
Michael, always good to see you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Great stuff.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Prince William particularly on the front pages of a lot of newspapers in that little video he made saying, sorry, I can't be with you, to the Lionesses. But was that good enough? Well, we're looking through the papers now with the editor of Spike, Tom Slater, and author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. Lovely to see you again.
Morning.
Thank you for coming in. Tom, let's kick off with The Sun.
I love this.
Yeah, no, you're just going to have to explain this one.
Yes, I picked this especially for Martin, because I know he loves...
Brilliant. It ticks every box, Tom.
So this is a pub in Northampton called The Spinney, which has decided to introduce its own beach towel system. So I know that GB News Breakfast Show has covered extensively the battles in Spain, where there's been all these kinds of issues, where particularly Brits abroad doing the classic getting down there before breakfast, putting the towel out in the sun lounger. We've heard before about Martin's particular exploits, which I don't want to preempt.
So how does this relate to a pub?
So essentially, apparently, their beer garden gets very busy, and as a bit of a promotional gimmick, it seems like they introduce their own beach towel system. So if you want to get there a bit early, presumably, lay your towel out. You can lay claim to one of the picnic tables or to one of the seats outside.
So they're encouraging this appalling behaviour.
Well, this is what I didn't really understand, because it seems like, if anything, the resorts often have to crack down on this behaviour because it becomes a bit of a problem for the other guests and so on, creates tensions. They seem to be encouraging it. I mean, it's got them a story in the Sun, which is good, free advertising, but nevertheless, it's an interesting one. I'm sure Martin will be on his way up to Northampton.
Well, I think this combines two of my favourite pastimes. Drinking and getting really territorial about beach towels. I would go for a classic Union flag towel.
Yeah.
And I would, I think, welcome the idea, although it could get a bit frisky. It could get a bit frisky when you've had a few of the old cervezas. Could get a bit territorial.
I was wondering if it was actually bar towels they gave you as well.
Oh,
the little
that's a nice
rectangular
What, stinking of beer?
Yes.
Very nice.
That would put people off sitting on your seat.
Yeah. Tell us another story in the Sun that you've got, Nikki, about this Amazon driver.
Oh, this is really good. I think Martin will like this one as well, actually.
Yeah,
I think you'll like it too, Anne, actually. So apparently, an Amazon driver who was making a trip to St Agnes in Cornwall, very beautiful, very tiny, narrow streets, claimed that he ended up stuck quite literally between two cottages, unable to get his very big lorry round the corner because he'd followed the sat-nav's instructions, which had assured him that he could drive through that gap. Now, I don't know. I did go to Cornwall quite a lot as a child, but wouldn't you think to maybe, I don't know, use your mind, engage your brain and think, well, it's probably going to be quite small streets.
If you're going round the bend, though, you see, sorry if you're listening on the radio, you won't know, but a big lorry and a very, very narrow bend in what looks like a village, basically. And I don't know, you could start going round that bend without knowing what's at the other, that it's a very tight bend indeed.
Yes.
Basically, he got stuck.
But apparently it took a couple of hours to get the lorry out of that.
But I can empathise with that. I've been to like Mousehole, and I was struggling to get my car through that. And the problem is, once you've committed, it's even harder to reverse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You
and then there's the pride issue. I mean,
there's actually a huge pride.
It's a male driver pride.
I've started, so I'll finish. If I have to do a U-turn, it insults my machismo. There's a lot of that. But there have been a lot of stories before. Do you remember about people following sat-navs and like driving through fields and off cliffs?
Off the edges of cliffs, exactly.
Surely there has to be a bit of common sense kicks in. When you see nothing but blue sky approach you, maybe you'd stop.
Oh, no.
But,
it says it on the sat-nav, it must be true.
I think common sense and blokes, getting directions right, go out the window. So actually, I'd have been with him. I'd have been stuck too. I would, yeah.
Tom, tell us about a trigger warning to a famous book.
So there's been a slew of these stories recently, and this is E.M. Forster's A Passage to India, which is in a new edition published in the US. It's often in the US that you see this happening. A trigger warning has been attached to it, warning about the fact that it reflects the attitudes of its time, warning about cultural representations in the book, warning about some of the language used.
It is a very delicate book from that point of view. So, there are sensitivities and there is language in it that you would never use today. But that's what E.M. Forster was writing about.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the interesting things about this, because of the fact that, as you say, it includes this kind of language because there's many prejudiced characters in it, talking about India under British imperial rule and so on. But it's a very anti-imperialist book.
Yes,
and that's the thing about these sensitivity warnings, these trigger warnings, is that they're not just wrapping in cotton wool a kind of work that might be kind of explicitly horrendous. We keep publishing it as a historical document. We don't necessarily endorse the views of it. This is a perspective that I think the publishers of this novel probably generally agree with, was quite radical for its time. And yet, because of this desire to tiptoe around it, you're still warning off readers from what could be not only a very canonical work, but also one that surely is progressive by anyone's standards. So it's one of those weird things that if you have this myopic focus on just the bad words that have been used, you can miss quite a good message.
Right, context is everything, isn't it? It's all to do with what the words are meant to be saying or performing or doing in literature. So, and also, if we start with this book, where do we end? I mean, everything that's in the canon needs a warning on it.
And that's the problem. Yesterday we were talking about Snow White. Snow White isn't white anymore, and there are no dwarves.
And there's no Prince Charming.
and no Prince Charming. So what's left?
Well, exactly.
Everything's offensive.
Probably musical numbers, and that's it. It seems completely stupid, doesn't it?
What else we got?
I just wondered if instead of a trigger warning, on one of the first pages, you could get an expert to just do a little paragraph saying, readers will be fascinated by this book because
because
this is what E.M. Forster was trying to say, and others may feel that such language should be, I don't know, censored. But we're giving you the manuscript as it was always meant to be, because this is the very point that E.M. Forster... I just wonder if you could do that instead of cancelling it.
Yeah.
Still, we're running out of time, whatever. So I've got to cancel you. So, sorry about that. Thanks very much indeed for coming.
Great fun, thank you.
We've got more World Cup fever to come, of course, because we're going to be talking about the Lionesses and how they're going to do. And we want to hear from you, please, about how you're watching it and where you're watching it and who you're watching it with. Let's celebrate. Meanwhile, you'll be wanting to know about the weather here in the UK.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. So the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, 1 or 2 on the heavy side, and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away. They actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearer skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light, and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday morning. So bright start across England and Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 showers in the far west, and then we'll see more persistent rain coming into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move through the day. Some of this rain could be heavy at times across much of the UK though. Another bright day, sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of them on the heavy side, but most places staying dry, and temperatures again in the southeast towards 25.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Weeknights on GB News from 6 p.m. You'll always get drama.
Please stop, Michelle. I know, yeah. Please stop. Should I just shut up?
Romance.
You like me, I like you. There you go.
There you are. Well, don't tell anybody.
Adventure.
Etc.
That's the whole point. But
and action.
Sergeant, the big green, my superstar panel, they're already at it. They're fighting. It's going to be quite a show.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Co, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day.
The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock on Sunday, the 20th of August, and only 2 hours away from kick-off. Well, it's been decades in the making. The Lionesses are taking on Spain in the World Cup final for the first time. Kick-off, as I said, less than 2 hours now. The countdown has begun.
And we'll also be meeting a dad from London who wrote the anthem that will soundtrack the Lionesses today. It's called She's a Baller.
Is that B-A-L-L or B-A-W-L?
B-A-L-L.
And the government is looking to change the law and force criminals like Lucy Letby, who was convicted, as we know now, of 7 murders, to attend their sentencing. Is that the right thing? I think most people agree.
Yeah, they've been getting very strong views today. They certainly agree that that should be the case. OK, it's been calmer weather-wise today. Will it last? Greg Dewhurst from the Met Office has your weather forecast throughout the show.
We have plenty of sunny spells in the forecast, but also a scattering of showers. Find out all the details with me coming up in the programme.
Well, a very good morning to you. I'm Anne Diamond.
And I'm Martin Daubney, and this is Breakfast on GB News.
Well, given that it's less than 2 hours to go now, I imagine the stadium's probably filling up already.
Yeah, there'll be
Put their
troops
beach
again.
towels down on seats.
Yeah, Union Jack towels on seats down there. Partisan crowd. We heard from a young fan, Georgia, Lioness fan, Brit in Sydney, who's got tickets for the event, saying the crowd have been getting them stick all week, but it won't deter the spirit.
And the weather is nice in Sydney, apparently, today.
25.
But of course, yeah. There we go. We can see live pictures now, so it's already dark.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So it's, 6 p.m. The game kicks off at 8 p.m. local time. So it's just after 6 p.m. in Sydney. Yeah, the sun's already down. There they go. They're milling about. This is the worst bit. There we go. There's some St George's.
Very bravely.
Yeah, the Knights in shining armour.
Oh, there we are. There's England.
Yeah, a football match wouldn't be a football match without St George in fancy dress. Yeah. And he's got the kids at it as well, look.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Great. They're all arriving, though, you know, Caroline says, I'm going to be watching and willing the Lionesses on from Bonnie, Scotland. I've watched all the games and I hope they win today.
Yeah, Steve says, I'll be watching from northern Cyprus and cheering on England with a cold beer.
Yeah. This is an interesting one because so many people saying it's the women's game, it's very different, you know, and if they were playing against men, they'd be slaughtered. Sian says, I think the Lionesses of today would beat the men's England team of '66.
Sian. I'm not being funny.
Shut you up, isn't it?
But
that silenced you.
I think we're allowed to be enthusiastic about today, but let's not be silly.
OK, Lena says, the phone's going to be off, the cat is fed, the wine is chilling, butterflies in my stomach, and everything crossed for the Lionesses.
Superb. Right. And Ian and Cal say we will be watching at the Travellers' Rest in Brookhouse, Sheffield, with our Reggie, the Saluki. The dog's going to have a little drink on the go too. Beautiful.
Gavin and Sue said, me and my wife are going to be watching the game at our home in Spain, and then we're going out to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Hopefully, it'll be a double celebration.
Beautiful. And Lee says, I'll be watching the Lionesses online at home in Johannesburg, as none of the pubs here are showing it.
And Steve in Shropshire says, as soon as the England game starts and my wife settles down to watch it, I'm certainly getting the vacuum cleaner out. Payback time.
Well, he's going to hoover through the match so she can't hear it.
Maybe that's what he means, yeah. But it's lovely seeing those scenes there in Sydney. The weather looks fab, actually, doesn't it? People in T-shirts still, even though it is an Australian winter. That's the sort of winter I like. Beautiful lights everywhere, everybody happy.
A nice balmy evening, and hopefully we'll have a balmy army of fans. We want that kind of spirit, because we've been getting stick off the Aussies down under throughout its entire tournament.
All right, don't
Look
stir.
at him. Look, he's got his scarf up, using it like Biggles, flying around, superb. Look at him.
But you've still got time to get your views in if you fancy. GB Views at gbnews.com. Tell us where you are watching it and who you're with, and are you making a big deal of it?
There's a lot of England fans there, Anne, it has to be said.
Yes. Well,
Look.
maybe we're only pointing our camera at the England fans.
Well, let's keep doing that.
Yes, I like it. Yeah. Gosh, fingers crossed, everything crossed. If you're going to do the vacuuming, do it now, I say.
Yeah.
But keep watching, because we've got lots of lovely people to talk to.
Yeah.
And Aidan McGee is with us as well. And we've got lots of, these opinions about how good they are up against the men. But it doesn't matter now, does it? We should just watch it as the World Cup game.
Yeah, we need to stop comparing. It's an obsession, it seems, with everybody to compare it to the men's game. Let's look at it in isolation. One of our previous guests, I think it was Patricia Gregory, was saying
that's right.
exactly the same thing. And so you're not going to, the game's still growing.
She said it's a different sport.
That's
it's
right.
quite an interesting phrase to use there.
It is. It plays out differently. Certainly, there's no question about it. But the game is still very much in its embryonic stages in this country. It's made strong leaps since 2015. That was the turning point, the line in the sand for me. Certainly, as a sports reporter. Certainly the coverage we started attributing to or portioning to the women's game as opposed to or up against the men. But yeah, we have to separate it out for now. One day we might be able to compare it, who knows, but I don't think we really have to do it, do we?
No, we don't. Listen, it's less than 2 hours to go. The Lionesses will be limbering up now. Aidan, who are the key players to watch today?
Well, I think there's a debate to be had right up to kick-off, because we're not going to know until the starting lineup comes out as regards who plays between Lauren James and Ella Toone. I think Serena Wigman will opt for sticking with the winning team. She did that throughout the Euros last year. She's had to manage changes through the build-up to the tournament. Only 1 goal scored in the 4 games leading up to the beginning of the group stage. But Ella Toone scored the opening goal against Australia. A fantastic goal it was in a big game. She scored 17 goals in 37 matches from midfield for England. She's playing for Manchester United, so she's a big game operator. I fancy her to keep her place. And I think culturally, if Lauren James just steps back into the team after a show of petulance in that first knockout game against Nigeria, I think that sends a wrong message to the rest of the country.
Yeah,
having said that, Serena Wigman, she takes the emotion out of things. She will go with whoever offers the best option on the day.
And as you say, Lauren James, of course, was benched for a couple of games after stamping on a player. It's called her David Beckham moment.
Yeah, it wasn't benched. She was actually suspended.
Red carded.
Yes, indeed. So she's eligible for the final. She could have had a 3. Yeah, that's right. That's Lauren on screen for the benefit of our radio listeners there. So she is the younger sister of the Chelsea defender, Reece James. He's one of the best players in the world right now, for my money. Mary Earps, the goalkeeper. Nottingham Lass, as you say, played for Doncaster, played for Leicester. Loads of caps for England, Euro winner last year. At fault for 1 or 2 goals this time, I think. But having said that, she's only conceded 3.
Yeah.
This is England's 7 games.
She'll be in goal.
Yeah, exactly.
At least I'll know her.
Well, no, but a good point Martin made earlier about the shirt. It's not available from Nike.
Yeah,
I wonder if they'll change.
Well, that pink shirt, I think, will become massively collectible, because she's wearing it in gold. Nike don't sell it. They were even airbrushing her out of the promotional photographs, which I think is a real mistake.
It is.
She deserves her moment in the sun, and that shirt, I think, is going to be a big collectible one in the future.
Jess Carter, we should mention, 25 years old, ex-Birmingham City, now with Chelsea. Now, she's been key because the formation has changed. She stepped back into a back 3 as opposed to a back 4, and she steps in on that left side seamlessly. And I think her title-winning experience with Chelsea, big game experience, of course, Euro winner last year, will prove very useful in a game like today. And Alessia Russo up front, we mentioned her in the last couple of hours, didn't we? Talking about how she's somebody who, again, performs on the big occasions. She comes to the party just when we need her. Just signed for Arsenal from Manchester United, a big move there. 28 caps, 14 goals. She scored in the last 2 matches as well, the really big ones against Colombia.
Yeah, she's
and
quite
Australia.
a big name, isn't she?
She is. So lots of pedigree as well throughout the team. As I say, there are changes, but I still back England to get the job done. Even though they're not favourites everywhere, you can get as short as 7-4 on Spain.
Time and again, you hear football commentators saying this team plays as a team.
Yes.
There aren't any particular standout stars with the, you know...
It's important. It's a really important distinction to make, Anne, because we remember the golden generation of men's game back 20 years ago. Beckham, Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, all these guys, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, Sol Campbell. They couldn't play together as a team. One of the first things Gareth Southgate did when he came in, he was on the periphery of that side, and he broke up the cliques, and he said that a team is worth more than the sum of its parts if they're playing together. And that's very much the ethos here. Serena Wiegmann, don't forget, she comes in, or she was brought in as a best-in-class coach. She'd been to a World Cup final with her native Holland. She won the Euros. She's already won the Euros with England. She completes women's football effectively today if she wins the World Cup. Wow, yes. But somebody with that pedigree and that trophy-winning experience does not do it without the team ethos being at the heart of everything she does. And it's a very good point you make there. OK,
Aidan McGee, you're going to be with GB News throughout this, giving your expert opinion. We've still got live footage there from Sydney. Look, there's Poe going around. There are drums. They're like a Spanish
It's funny, though. In mine, I always imagine it to be a sunshine event.
Yes, I know. It's strange, isn't it, seeing that they're playing at night.
Yeah.
But thank goodness, because it means that we can have a nice morning.
It looks great fun. Yeah. Look at it.
We won't feel as guilty having a pint, will we?
No,
exactly.
It does look as though there's a great atmosphere.
Certainly does.
For all, which is smashing.
Great stuff.
Not long to go.
Good to see you both this morning.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Lovely.
Lots more of things to talk about, though, of course, matters political. This week with Parliament in recess, we've seen inflation fall, drop in A-level success rates and further criticism over the British government's handling of the boats crisis.
Yeah, but the biggest story of the week is that, of course, of Lucy Letby. She will not be attending her sentencing to see the faces of the families she has utterly destroyed. Today, we've been asking the question all morning, should murderers be forced to attend and face the music?
Yeah, well, coming up shortly is the Camilla Tominey show. But Camilla's off and Tom Harwood is taking the hot seat. Hi there. Yeah, you've got lots to talk about, my goodness, haven't you?
Lots to talk about and big shoes to fill, really, standing in for Camilla, but I'm going to do my best. And we've got one of the longest-serving ministers in government on the show this morning, Nick Gibb. He's been schools minister for just over 12 years, and in a government that has chopped and changed so much, having some consistency is really interesting because he's been at the heart of government for all that time, so really understands how these things work. And we will be putting to him that audience question. Will the government be getting on quickly with forcing people to face their sentences?
Well, we hear it's going to be in the King's speech, which suggests that it will happen as soon as it can. End of the year?
By the end of the year, we're expecting the King's speech perhaps in November, although we don't have a set date yet. But we've also got the former Justice Secretary, Robert Buckland, on. And I want to ask Robert Buckland about what else could be done to force people to attend their sentencing in the meantime. Are there any sort of quirks of law that could be explored? Can we get people to face the justice that they deserve? It's fascinating, actually. I was talking to Sophie Reaper, our North West of England reporter, who has been at the trial, the Lucy Letby trial, for months on end. She told me on Friday that the judge will be performing the sentence as if Lucy Letby is there, talking almost to an empty chair. So perhaps Lucy Letby will one day watch that and sort of feel the effect of it. But certainly some big questions there. But it's not just Lucy Letby we're talking about today. We've also got a fascinating man by the name of Oliver Lawrence. Not a household name, but he's someone who helped run the Australian government's offshore processing plant in Nauru. He's got some fascinating things to say about how the Australians ran that facility and perhaps lessons that the United Kingdom can learn. That and one of the richest men in Britain, John Caldwell, the founder of Phones for You, he gave £500,000 quid to the Tory party before the 2019 election. What does he think of the Tories now? Big questions.
Yes, that's right.
And will he continue to donate to them? I mean, they seem like a lost cause. I'm fascinated about the offshore processing aspect in Australia. It was central to the success of Australia's Stop the Boats campaign. We don't have anything like that in Britain. Do you think he'll be liaising with people here and maybe we're camping a few tips from the Aussies?
Well, I think certainly what has happened in recent years is that people in government have spoken to the Australians about some of the successes that they made, but the government is very reticent to follow through with some of the more, bravado-like policy that Tony Abbott's government performed back in the early 2010s. It's interesting, though, listening to what Oliver Lawrence has said before on this subject, there's so much more nuance to how the Australians ran their offshore processing facility than often the British press has picked up on. Many different strands to this, and perhaps it's actually more humane than people might have thought. But
they weren't dealing with small dinghies, though. They were dealing with big boats. But it's interesting that he was in charge of the processing, because clearly we've got a lot of people who are actually on land at the moment now, and we're not processing them fast enough.
Well, this is fascinating as well, because Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, said only in the last couple of weeks that perhaps the government doesn't want to process people more quickly.
Yes.
Because that might encourage more people to come. To me, that's a fascinating argument. And it does seem to if we're to take that to its logical extension, it's official government policy to want to put people in hotels at the taxpayers' expense rather than process them. And I'm going to ask the government minister that as well.
And what was fascinating about the Australian plan was that they invested a huge amount in Papua New Guinea in terms of infrastructure. They built railways, roads, schools. They put a lot of money to make it something that was attractive to them, as opposed to giving £500 million to the French, and then they won't let anybody, they'll keep everyone coming to Britain anyway.
Absolutely, and the government is not exploring offshore processing. I think it's important to note that the Rwanda scheme isn't a processing facility. It's a permanent residence facility. And so there are some big questions to explore in that area, and it will be a fascinating conversation. We've also got John Sargent reviewing the papers.
Oh, love John
Broadcasting legend.
He is.
And he's got some really, really interesting stories that we've been picking out in the last hour or so. So it's going to be a really jam-packed show full of some big news stories and some great analysis. The perfect thing to watch in the run-up to the football. And do you know what? We end just before 11 o'clock, so you can get your fix of politics and then flip over and not miss a minute of the football.
Well, I'm sold. Tom, nice show. Have a great one, mate.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's not long to go until you're on that train too, is it?
Oh, I'm so excited.
Plenty more to come. Keep watching, including we're going to be talking about this new anthem for the Lioness fans. You're watching Breakfast on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Dan Wootton. You can watch me live on GB News Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. And did you know that you can also watch and listen live on our website, gbnews.com? You'll always be up to date on the latest breaking news, as well as enjoying the best stories, opinions and shows. You can even join the debate under our live player as you're watching. So head straight to gbnews.com on TV, radio and online. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "No, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment.
I came to GB News because it's the people's channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast here on GB News with Anne and Martin. We're looking, though, live now in Sydney at the stadium, of course, where the World Cup final for the women is going to take place in what? Well less.
An hour
than
and 40
2 hours.
minutes.
An hour and 40 minutes, yeah. And you can see that, you know, we were talking earlier about the fact that some Australians haven't been so kind to England fans, but there are lots of England fans. They're proudly wearing their St George Cross.
Yeah, and there's a textbook.
Outfits. And nobody's being horrible to them. They're really enjoying themselves.
Not at the moment. There's a textbook, St George there, in the full regalia, the Crusaders outfit, chainmail, flag.
If you're listening on the radio as well at the moment, it's sort of quite surprising to say, here we go, live to Sydney, and it's dark there.
Yeah.
Because it's about 7 o'clock. It's going towards 7 o'clock at night, isn't it? There in Sydney, Australia. And it's dark, but they've got all the light shows going on, and the stadium looks fabulous. And it looks like a really good festival atmosphere.
It does.
Lots of Union Jacks there.
It's about 6:20 there, so no doubt a few of the crowd will have had a sundowner. And they'll be putting some oil on the cogs, as it were, and getting ready for a fantastic match. Only an hour and 40 away now till kick-off.
Now, until England's first World Cup win, hopefully, ever. Oh, well, ever for the women, and certainly the first one since 1966. Is it coming home? That's what we're all asking.
Yeah, well, it's not long now until that World Cup final game. As we said, the Lionesses take on Spain. Have you been getting ready to watch?
Yeah, maybe you're stocking up on supplies of crisps and beer. Bacon butties and beer, that's what we were thinking, if you're right, going down to the pub. One dad was so excited he wrote a Women's World Cup song for his two daughters. Listen to this.
Women from around the world, all the nations, all the champions. Listen, here we go. Hey guys, you gotta see this. She's a baller. Check it out, you gotta see this. From the moment you were born, you were special. So special. Traveling at the speed of light. Girl, you were born in a million. Every chance you had to take it. Take it, girl, this is your time. This is your time. Yeah. Listen to the crowd. Listen to the crowd. She's a baller. She's been there, done it before.
Well, there you are, you see. It's called She's a Baller.
Yeah.
We better speak to the lead singer behind this song, Mark Halliwell, who joins us now, because I've got to ask you, what's a baller?
A baller is someone that is very good at football.
Good. I'm glad you said that, because it sort of sounds a bit weird.
A bit rude.
Yeah,
yes,
well,
it does.
My father-in-law, did actually say that to me the other day, but it's obviously an older generation thing, because I certainly haven't heard it, and I haven't, that hasn't been pointed out to me by anyone else. So
if somebody says to somebody else, she's a baller, that's a compliment.
That's a very good compliment. That means they're incredibly good at football.
And we couldn't help but notice you had a couple of youngsters in that video. Were they your daughters?
They are my daughters, yes. Lucia and Mila, the joy of my life. They keep me busy. I don't know how I've managed to do this project while having two under two, but they make it easy for me. Yeah. Absolute darlings.
You're obviously excited about the whole World Cup thing today.
Oh.
If your children are under 2, they probably don't fully understand that there's a big women's football thing going on.
I think Mila really does know what's going on. I mean, she does just shout Arsenal at the television and Dada, because obviously because of the music video, I'm on a football pitch, so yeah, so she just associates it with me, which is really sweet. But no, she's really getting into it, and I think she could be a future baller.
Well, that video and the song is on YouTube at the moment.
It is, yes.
Are many people watching it?
Yes, no, good numbers. You know, obviously not as much as my previous song, Coming Home for Christmas. But you know, we haven't had the same press coverage. But you know, that's obviously a bit of a problem.
Now, absolutely.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, here I am now, and hopefully that will boost the numbers. But you know, it shows that we need to, you know, pay more attention to the women's game, and that's the reason for the song.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that even though your daughters will be too young to probably remember the match, you'll be getting photographs of it, of the moment, with a view, I'm assuming, to build them into getting their own fixation with women's football.
Yeah, that's already in the works. I'm sure that they're into it, and you know, the platform that the Lionesses are giving these young girls, inspiring children up and down the country, it's getting bigger and bigger. And you know, I just thought it was really important to do a platonic song for women.
No, it's lovely. We've been asking people how they're watching, where they're watching. Bob and Sandra say we're going to be watching the Lionesses in our caravan at the Naturist Foundation in Orpington, in Kent.
Oh,
so that will be a nude viewing.
You can't top that.
No, you can't really, no.
I don't know what to say. You're going to be watching the Lionesses while Starkers. JP says, my son and I were watching in Exeter. We have the Buntington flags. I've got the champagne on ice. We'll enjoy it.
Yeah, have a wonderful time watching
Thank
it. Eve, or even if you're not very interested in football, you have a lovely holiday in Wales. And from us all at GB News, yay, let's bring it home.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. For the day ahead, plenty of sunny spells. The winds will be lighter, but there is a scattering of showers. So if we look at the details for this morning, plenty of sunshine across central and eastern parts of the UK. A few showers already in the west, and as we go through the day, the cloud will bubble up. We could see a scattering of showers, but most places will stay dry. Perhaps parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland seeing a few more showers, 1 or 2 on the heavy side, and still a little breezy here. Temperatures reaching the low 20s, but towards the mid-20s across the southeast in the best of the sunshine. Into the evening time on Sunday, any showers will tend to fade away. They actually start to increase across parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move into the early hours, as this low pressure centre here starts to edge back towards us. Clearest skies across central and eastern areas. We could see a few shallow mist and fog patches where winds are light, and temperatures generally again in the mid-teens to take us into Monday morning. So bright start across England and Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 showers in the far west, and then we'll see more persistent rain coming into parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland as we move through the day. Some of this rain could be heavy at times. Across much of the UK, though, another bright day, sunny spells and scattered showers. Some of them on the heavy side, but most places staying dry, and temperatures again in the southeast towards 25.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.